The Pingtian Empire had formally changed hands. The past patriarch of the Mo clan now held supreme authority in the Pingtian Empire. It had to be mentioned that having Mo Xingfeng inherit the throne was an extremely clever decision. Mo Xingfeng was not particularly powerful, but he was one of the people who had made contact with Jian Chen the earliest. Moreover, he was a founding member of the Tian Yuan clan. He held quite some status. Now that he had become the emperor of the Pingtian Empire, the relationship between the Pingtian Empire and Tian Yuan clan became even closer. Of course, all of these changes had been caused by the revelation of Ming Xie's identity as a divine general of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Not only did the statuses of the Pingtian Empire and Tian Yuan clan rise with the exposure of Ming Xie's identity, but even the Shi clan in the northern region benefited tremendously. Ever since Shi Lianxue fell under the heavenless demon Exalt's control and made the Shi Empire that once dominated the northern region stand with the Tian Empire, the Shi Empire had been dragged into the war across the entire Cloud Plain. Eventually, they started to face destruction. Afterwards, due to the combined efforts of the Heaven-Cracking sect and the Sword sect of Four Poles, the imperial family of the Shi Empire was almost completely devastated. They even gave up on the imperial palace, allowing their enemies to occupy it. Afterwards, the Shi Emperor and the other two chaotic primes broke free thanks to Ming Xie's assistance, so their Shi clan finally escaped danger. They truly gained the ability to contend against the Heaven-Cracking sect and Sword sect of Four Poles. Under the leadership of the current emperor, Shi Ziyun, the Shi Empire gradually stabilized and began to recover slowly. However, at this moment, the Heaven-Cracking sect and the Sword sect of Four Poles that had completely fallen out with the Shi Empire banded together with the various organizations of the northern region, using Shi Lianxue as an excuse to form a powerful coalition. They stood against the Shi Empire, doing all that they could to prevent them from uniting the northern region. As a matter of fact, the ancestors of the Heaven-Cracking sect and the Sword sect of Four Poles had even visited the God's Fallen clan located in the northern region in hopes of having them send experts to completely destroy the Shi Empire. However, now that Ming Xie's identity had been exposed, the God's Fallen clan and even the peak experts of the Righteous Alliance all treated the Shi Empire differently. On this day, just when the important members of the Shi Empire were racking their brains over how to recover their lost territory and recreate the empire, the two chaotic prime ancestors of the Heaven-Cracking sect and Sword sect of Four Poles who had always stood against them brought the leaders of the various organizations with them to the boundary of the Shi Empire. They had come to seek forgiveness and to pledge their loyalty to the Shi Empire. Ever since then, the Shi Empire had completely recovered all of its lost territory, successfully uniting the northern region again and becoming a dominating power there. As for the God's Fallen clan, although they were a peak organization and resided in the northern region as well, they behaved like hermits most of the time and did not interfere with worldly affairs. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance had returned to the Azure Brilliance Mountain on the Lone Heaven Plain. He took on a human form and sat at the top of the mountain with an extremely sunken face. Rage had been building up within him for a very long time now, such that it seemed like he was about to explode at any time. Jian Chen, I have already firmly remembered you. I will never forget you. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance gritted his teeth as he nursed many grievances. He failed to destroy the Tian Yuan clan and returned miserably instead. He was already petty and vengeful enough, so he placed all the blame on Jian Chen. It made his resentment towards Jian Chen grow even more intense. In particular, when he thought about how he was the infamous Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance, he struggled to think of any places he would not receive respect from. However, ever since he encountered Jian Chen, bad luck had been constantly with him. Not only did he fail to hunt down Jian Chen many times, but he even ended up injured time and time again. As a result, his resentment towards Jian Chen reached a devastating level. Jian Chen had almost become an inner demon for the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance. Jian Chen, you probably would have never thought that the true master of the Inata Tower, the Inata Grand Prime, hasn't died like as rumored. You've boldly taken possession of the Inata Tower for yourself and refined it ignorantly, so you'll die to the hands of the Grand Exalt sooner or later. At this moment, the Azure Pen King thought of something and immediately smiled coldly. Hold on. However, his smile only lasted for a single moment before suddenly freezing up. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's gaze became shocking. He said sternly, "The Inata Grand Prime is a Grand Exalt of the Saints' world. His abilities are exceptional. As long as he's still alive, no matter where the Inata Tower is hidden, even in the many spaces in the lower worlds, he will be able to find it with a single thought with his ability as a Grand Exalt. But why does Jian Chen still possess the Inata Tower? If the Inata Grand Prime was dead, Jian Chen's possession of the Inata Tower would make sense. However, the Inata Grand Prime is clearly still alive, and he has even accepted a 9th disciple. He should have found out about the Inata Tower long ago, but why hasn't he collected it? Is it because the Inata Grand Prime secretly permits Jian Chen to possess the Inata Tower? The Azure Pen King's face immediately changed drastically, and his heart surged when his thoughts reached this point. At that moment, he could not help but think back to what he went through when he hunted down Jian Chen. The memories flashed through his head, starting from when he first entered the spatial crack in search of Jian Chen to falling into so many temporal vortices for no reason in the end. He seemed to understand something, and he was immediately shocked. It's the Inata Grand Prime. It's the Inata Grand Prime. He's secretly behind it all, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance cried out inside as he fell into emotional turmoil. However, he simply could not understand the reasoning behind the Inata Grand Prime's actions. At this moment, on a land distant from the desolate plain on the Saints' world, there was an extremely bustling city with several large-scale formations. The teleportation formations would flicker with light from time to time, and the teleportation powers would surge, sending cultivators far away. In the center of the teleportation formations was one that was clearly even larger and more complicated. However, it would frequently remain unused for several months or even years. People poured in and out of the teleportation formations around it. Compared to the busier teleportation formations, the larger teleportation formation clearly seemed rather special. This was because it was a teleportation formation that could take people across Great Plains. Across any of the 49 Great Plains or 81 Great Planets in the Saints' world, there would not be a lot of these types of teleportation formations. Only organizations of great power could construct them. At this moment, the teleportation formation suddenly shone with dazzling light. Its teleportation powers surged out, and a young man and woman appeared silently. The man was burly and bare-chested. His muscles swelled, hiding explosive power. The woman had an ordinary face. She did not seem to have any special features at all. She was the type who would not stand out at all from a crowd. Obviously, the two of them were Jian Chen and Kaya. Not only did Jian Chen wear Mo Tianyan's mask and conceal his presence, he even altered his stature drastically. Kaya also used a disguise. Neither of them used their true appearances. The two of them are only God Kings, yet they've come through an interplanar teleportation formation. You can tell with a single glance that they have a huge background. That's an interplanar teleportation formation. It's said that a single transportation comes at an astronomical price, where even regular primordial realm experts can't afford it. Jian Chen and Kaya's arrival immediately attracted the attention of the people around the teleportation formation. Many of them studied Jian Chen and Kaya as they discussed among themselves softly. "Let's go," said Jian Chen before immediately vanishing into the sea of people with Kaya. At the same time, on the distant desolate plain, all the peak experts were no longer in the mood to look for Jian Chen and fight over the Inata Tower anymore after what happened with the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. All of them left the desolate plain and returned to their clans with no idea about how to deal with Gusta's flesh and blood. However, there was one exception. He was a hook-nosed old man that had short hair. He was the ancestor of a large organization on the aqua plane of the 49 Great Plains in the Saints' world. People called him the Elder of Mountains and Seas. Although the Elder of Mountains and Seas had already left the desolate plain, he was in no hurry to return to the Aqua Plain. Instead, he sat in the sea of stars and used a secret technique, as if he was trying to sense something. Quite a long while later, the Elder of Mountains and Seas opened his eyes slowly, and a gleam of excitement appeared in his eyes. He sniggered and said, "Jian Chen, I've already seen your true appearance when I was outside the Sword God Mountains. You would have never thought that I possess an innate ability that allows me to find anyone, no matter how far they've fled, no matter how well they've hidden, as long as I've seen them before. Before I saw you, there was nothing that I could do. I wouldn't have been able to find you no matter how I tried forecasting or peering into your matters. However, since I've seen you, there's nowhere for you to hide. I've already found you. I never thought you would have actually managed to leave the desolate plain without raising anyone's attention. However, that is perfect for me. Even if I took the Inata Tower from you on the desolate plain, it might not necessarily end up with me. But now that you've left the desolate plain secretly, only I know about your whereabouts. It looks like the Inata Tower is mine. Here comes my fortuitous encounter. Jian Chen, I would like to see how you hide now, the Elder of Mountains and Seas sneered excitedly. Immediately, he took off in the direction he could vaguely sense. He moved extremely quickly, vanishing into the sea of stars with a few flashes. Elsewhere, Jian Chen and Kaya had asked around and found out their current location. They were on the Jade Fluid Plain, and they currently stood within an imperial capital of the Shenquan Empire, one of the everlasting empires there. The Jade Fluid Plain ranked slightly lower than the Desolate Plain among the 49 Great Plains. In reality, the Jade Fluid Plain matched the Desolate Plain in terms of peak experts. The only thing they lacked was a peak expert who could astound the entire plain like the Celestial Sword Saint. The Jade Fluid Plain is far too close to the Desolate Plain, so we can't stay here for long. We need to leave as soon as possible, Jian Chen said as he felt secretly vexed. Due to leaving in too great of a hurry, he did not select a transportation location. In the end, the unkempt old man had sent them to the closest Jade Fluid Plain. He had spent a total of 1,005 colored divine crystals, yet he had been sent to a location that he could reach with a few dozen. He had indeed suffered quite a loss in the deal. Now, the 5 colored divine crystals that he had obtained after so much effort were all spent. The Jade Fluid Plain is indeed not safe. If the people on the Desolate Plain want to come here, it won't take them long even without teleportation formations. We can't end up trapped like last time, said Kaya in agreement. Obviously, she believed that the further they were from the Desolate Plain, the safer they would be. After a while of thought, Jian Chen said, "We're out of 5 colored divine crystals, so we won't be able to use the teleportation formations to travel anymore. We can only take a spatial battleship off the Jade Fluid Plain." Then where should we go? Kaya asked. The Inata Tower is an object of desire. I plan on returning the Inata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng in exchange for great merit, said Jian Chen. He understood that he would never have peace as long as the Inata Tower was on him. He would become the target of many peak experts. If these people looked into his background and found the Tian Yuan clan, there would be a lot of trouble. After all, he had left the Cloud Plain many years ago. He had no idea about the Tian Yuan clan's current situation. Although Ming Dong had already ventured to the Tian Yuan clan after leaving the Neptunian Divine Palace, Jian Chen needed to prepare for the worst. Before long, Jian Chen and Kaya arrived at the spatial port of the Shenquan Empire. They were ready to take a spatial battleship that went to the Prosper Plain where the heavenly palace of Bisheng stood. Although they were already powerful enough to travel through outer space alone, their speed would be much slower than a spatial battleship. After all, even the spatial battleships of the lowest quality moved much faster than 9th heavenly layer infinite primes. It would be impossible to match their speed unless there was a chaotic prime. Even if he used the laws of space with his current strength, he would not be able to outspeed a spatial battleship. However, when he checked the amount of time required to go to the Prosper Plain, Jian Chen became troubled. The jade fluid plane was extremely distant from the Prosper plane. They had to pass through several great planes and over a dozen planets. The journey alone would take several tens of thousand years. Moreover, this did not include the time that would be wasted by the disturbance of various space beasts and by avoiding areas of danger. The journey would take even longer once such things were considered. Jian Chen could not afford to wait such a long time. Let's go to the Star Brilliance plane. The Star Brilliance plane is the closest to the jade fluid plane. It'll only take over a decade to get there. I'll be able to use that time to properly cultivate on the spatial battleship. Jian Chen quickly came to a decision. Now, not only did he possess 5 droplets of essence blood from Gusta, but he also possessed Gusta's energy reserve, the fleshly core. With such tremendous energy on hand, he did not have to worry about cultivation resources to reach the 15th or even 16th layer now, let alone breaking through to the 14th layer of the chaotic body. As long as his comprehension of laws was sufficient, he could immediately break through with his chaotic body. Afterwards, Jian Chen changed his appearance once again, becoming a middle-aged man with a stature not too burly or slender through Mo Tianyan's mask. Afterwards, he boarded the spatial battleship with Kaya, hurrying off to the Star Brilliance plane. Before long, the spatial battleship rose up to outer space and left the jade fluid plane, gliding through outer space. Jian Chen immediately entered secluded cultivation. He personally cast down a formation before immediately absorbing the energy within Gusta's essence blood to break through to the 14th layer of the chaotic body. The 13th layer of the chaotic body had bestowed upon him the battle prowess to fight and kill early infinite primes. But in reality, his level of cultivation was only peak God King in terms of how cultivation was divided in the saints' world. It was the 14th layer of the chaotic body that matched up with infinite primes in the saints' world. After all, the chaotic body was a completely different system of cultivation. Both the systems used in the saints' world and the immortals' world differed greatly. It was impossible to make an accurate comparison between the different cultivation systems. He could only roughly determine where he was. The 14th layer of the chaotic body is equivalent to infinite primes in the saints' world, while the 15th layer is also equivalent to infinite primes. I presume that the 14th layer is around the peak of early infinite prime, so around the 3rd heavenly layer. The 15th layer is equivalent to late infinite prime, which is from the 7th to the 9th heavenly layers. The 16th, 17th, and 18th layers should correspond to early, mid and late chaotic prime. The 18th layer is the limit of the chaotic prime, which is peak chaotic prime. That is because none of the people in the immortals world who had cultivated the chaotic body has managed to surpass the 18th layer and reach the legendary great perfection. This great perfection is equivalent to grand primes of the saints' world and immortal exalts of the immortals world, Jian Chen thought to himself. Although the final limit of the chaotic body was chaotic prime, and he might never be able to progress any further than that, he did not become downhearted at all. Instead, his fighting spirit was riled up. He had to disprove the rumor that the chaotic body could never reach great perfection. He would reach the highest level of the chaotic body. Jian Chen sat with his legs crossed within the cabin. A fist-sized jade bottle was placed beside him. It contained Gusta's essence blood. Jian Chen had already removed a droplet of essence blood from the jade bottle. The pea-sized, shining droplet of essence blood hovered before Jian Chen quietly. The droplet of essence blood contained extremely terrifying energy. If it erupted, it would unleash devastating might enough to destroy a whole region of space. However, at this moment, all of the energy within the essence blood was concealed, without giving out any ripples at all. Otherwise, the formation Jian Chen cast down would have never been able to conceal something so powerful. Currently, the energy within the droplet of essence blood was being absorbed by Jian Chen bit by bit. After he refined the energy, it turned into new chaotic force and filled up his chaotic Niden. As the energy within the essence blood rapidly drained away, Jian Chen's chaotic Niden gradually swelled up. The droplet of essence blood contains the power of curses. This power was an arrangement set up by the expert who comprehended the laws of curses among the 8 experts, but I've inherited his golden core of laws, so the laws don't affect me, thought Jian Chen. His comprehension of the laws of curses had already reached God King, so he had discovered the power of curses within the essence blood long ago. As he absorbed the essence blood, the power of curses would seep into his body along with it before being absorbed by one of the golden cores of laws in his soul. As a result, the power of curses was useless against him. This curse will spread with the power of the bloodline. Using Gusta's bloodline as a medium, it will cross through time and space and directly cast itself on all ancient great apes. I just wonder if the ancient great apes are affected or not. Jian Chen opened his eyes and looked towards the cabin door. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce it, allowing him to see the vast space outside. Whatever. Let's cultivate first. My priority right now is to reach the 14th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen dismissed his thoughts and began to focus on cultivating. In the heaven-splitting clan on the 9 Clouds Plain, the heaven-splitting ancestor who only seemed to be in his 30s stood in white robes as an invisible presence radiated from him. It interfered with the laws and order there at all times. As a result, the region was completely under his control. It felt like he was the supreme ruler of that region. As one of the most powerful experts below Grand Exalts and an existence that was incredibly close to becoming the heavenly ways themselves, the heaven-splitting ancestor could influence a small region of space even though he could not affect the laws and order of an entire world. He was extremely powerful. A space ring hovered before the heaven-splitting ancestor quietly. Nearby, Tu San stood politely with his head lowered. Bang! At this moment, the space ring exploded loudly. Immediately, pieces of flesh with many droplets of golden blood appeared out of nowhere. One of the pieces was colossal. It was the size of a mountain. The thick arm it was attached to reached thousands of meters long. With so many body fragments, the heaven-splitting ancestor's courtyard was no longer big enough to hold it all. However, at this moment, a powerful will appeared. It influenced the order and laws in the area, immediately shrinking the pieces to an ordinary man's size. Even the huge arm had shrunk to a little over a meter in length. The heaven-splitting ancestor stared at the blood and flesh calmly and said, "There's the power of curses within Gusta's blood. This is a curse of a bloodline. All members of the ancient great apes won't be able to avoid its influence no matter how distant they are. However, it's completely unneeded." The person who cast it down had no idea that the ancient great apes had basically gone extinct after their war with the Spiritsages. Their 2 remaining dark gold ape kings were slain by the wind venerable of the Spiritsages as well. It has been a very long time since an ancient great ape has appeared in the saints' world. Perhaps their species have completely vanished off the face of the world. Master, how should we deal with the flesh and blood? Tu San asked politely. He felt uneasy. After all, this matter was related to the blood tier Grand Exalt. Leave Gusta's blood and flesh here for now. Let's see the blood tier Grand Exalt's response first, the heaven-splitting ancestor said slowly. He looked at the vast outer space, and his eyes deepened. I have always felt that there was something strange, something off with this matter, as the blood tier Grand Exalt's reaction was rather abnormal. Gusta's body has been nourished on the desolate plain for countless years now. Over such a long period of time, no one has been able to sense this. The 2 other dark gold ape kings of the ancient great apes were clearly incapable of this. They were powerful, but they were only powerful in battle. In terms of techniques and abilities, they were nowhere close to other experts. As a result, it's definitely the blood tier Grand Exalt's handiwork. Since Gusta's body has caught the blood tier Grand Exalt's eye, these remains definitely would not have ended up with us. The blood tier Grand Exalt would have taken it back. With a Grand Exalt's abilities, rebuilding Gusta's shattered body is a piece of cake, but the Blood Tier Grand Exalt did not retrieve the remains. The Blood Tier Grand Exalt treats Gusta's body with importance, yet he doesn't care about it, allowing us to fight over it. There's something strange about that. The final point is Jian Chen. He was the one behind the shattering of Gusta's body, so logically speaking, the Blood Tier Grand Exalt should not have spared him. However, the Blood Tier Grand Exalt did not take a single person away from the desolate plain, nor did he kill anyone. He left very suddenly. This is indeed difficult to understand. The laws interwove within the heaven-splitting ancestor's eyes. He tried peering into the matter. I always felt like this matter isn't as simple as it seems. There seems to be some unknown secret hidden within it. Master, then about Jian Chen, Tu San asked carefully. The heaven-splitting ancestor fell into a moment of thought and replied, after what happened with the Blood Tier Grand Exalt, I feel like Jian Chen is even more complicated than I imagined him to be. There's no need for you to do anything more. Just wait for Jian Chen to appear again, and I'll pay him a personal visit. I'm very curious about the secrets he hides, where even I can't peer into any matters about him. And Gusta's fleshly core might be with Jian Chen. The fleshly core is the most valuable item from Gusta's body. With that, the heaven-splitting ancestor vanished. When he reappeared, he was inside the Neptunian Divine Palace. The defenses of the Neptunian Divine Palace were completely useless to the heaven-splitting ancestor. They were unable to stop him at all. Senior, has Brother Jian Chen come? Before long, Ziyun and Xiao Man rushed over after receiving a notice from the artifact spirit. As soon as she saw the heaven-splitting ancestor, Xiao Man asked eagerly and looked around for traces of Jian Chen. Although Ziyun said nothing, the light in her eyes did flicker. They were filled with hope. Jian Chen is very safe. He doesn't need my protection. I've come this time to ask you one more time about whether you've considered my previous suggestion. Are you willing to exchange the Pernite or with me? If you exchange it with me, not only will I give you a tremendous amount of cultivation resources and heavenly resources, but I will also protect you from any disturbances so that you can cultivate at ease, the heaven-splitting ancestor said calmly. Senior, are you chasing us away? Ziyun's heart sank slightly. My patience is limited, said the heaven-splitting ancestor. We'll do it. We're willing to exchange with you. However, right after the heaven-splitting ancestor finished speaking, the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace agreed eagerly. He felt much fear towards the heaven-splitting ancestor. Currently, the artifact stood there as a short old man. All right. I'll go prepare the items, and we'll exchange them in 3 days. The heaven-splitting ancestor was delighted. He chuckled aloud before vanishing from the Neptunian Divine Palace. After the heaven-splitting ancestor's departure, the artifact spirit said to Xiao Man bitterly and powerlessly, Little Master, we're out of options. If we don't agree to the heaven-splitting ancestor's terms, we won't be able to stay here any longer. You still should remember what we faced several days ago, Little Master. We didn't have the deterrence of the heaven-splitting ancestor, and all the peak experts who desired the Neptunian Divine Palace swarmed us. The defenses of the Neptunian Divine Palace are very great, but they are not invincible. Once we end up in the hands of those peak experts, we'll probably lose our freedom. Matters even more severe than that might happen. But the heaven-splitting ancestor is different. The Neptunian Divine Palace does not interest him. What interests him is only the Pernite ore on the 8th floor, so the heaven-splitting ancestor definitely won't harm us. But he hasn't brought back Brother Jian Chen. Xiao Man refused to accept it. The artifact spirit sighed and said sincerely, Little Master, you still haven't understood that what we need to consider is not Jian Chen's safety but our own. We cannot offend the heaven-splitting ancestor. He can even move through the Neptunian Divine Palace as he pleases. If he forcefully takes away the Pernite ore, we won't be able to stop him at all. If it were not for his pride as a supreme expert at his level, coupled with the fact that little master is no different from a child in his eyes, the heaven-splitting ancestor would just take what he wanted, and we probably won't be able to keep the Pernite ore until now. Anyway, since the heaven-splitting ancestor wants the Pernite ore, it's not something we'll be able to keep. Even if the Neptunian Divine Palace ends up in the hands of other peak experts, they'll only be able to offer up the Pernite ore to the heaven-splitting ancestor obediently. In the end, it's all because we're too weak. Xiao Man, after we get cultivation resources from senior heaven splitting, we have to work hard on cultivation. Without great strength, we will constantly be restrained, under the control of others no matter where we go in this world. Ziyun sighed gently as determination flooded her eyes. She had obtained the legacy of a chaotic prime from the Neptunian Divine Palace, so she stood at a good starting point. The only thing she lacked now was hard work and cultivation resources. Time passed silently. Unknowingly, a year and a half had already passed since the mess on the desolate plain. A colossal spatial battleship shot through the endless sea of stars within the Saint's world, moving at great speeds. At this moment, Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes as he sat within a high-class cabin. He looked at the jade bottle placed beside him. Just when he wanted to lift it, he suddenly hesitated. Gusta's essence blood is very difficult to refine. Absorbing a single droplet takes me half a year. Now, only 2 droplets remain, but looking at the size of my chaotic Niden, I won't be able to reach the 14th layer even if I absorb them. Whatever, I'll keep the 2 droplets for now and exchange them for some 5-colored divine crystals when I get the chance. Gusta was one of the most powerful experts below Grand Exalt. His essence blood would obviously be invaluable. I just happen to be in need of quite a lot of 5-colored divine crystals to go to the Prosper Plane. Jian Chen immediately stowed the bottle away when he thought of this point. After that, he clasped Gusta's fleshly core in his hand before beginning to absorb the energy and vital energy within it. The energy within the fleshly core was extremely terrifying and powerful. It was on a whole different level compared to all the energy within a droplet of essence blood. After all, the fleshly core was equivalent to Jian Chen's chaotic Niden. It was the reserve of all of Gusta's power. As a result, Jian Chen was especially careful and cautious when he absorbed the energy in the fleshly core. He only dared to absorb a tiny strand each time. Even though it was just a tiny strand, it was tremendous to him. It would take him quite a long time to refine it completely. Time passed slowly. It took Jian Chen even longer to reach the 14th layer compared to his past breakthroughs. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen had already been cultivating on the spatial battleship for a decade. He did not take a single step out of the cabin during this time, devoting it all to cultivation. Even when the spatial battleship faced the attacks of space beasts and shook heavily, his cultivation continued. With the fleshly core, Jian Chen was extremely confident about reaching the 14th layer. He was willing to bet his life on it. Finally, a powerful pulse of energy suddenly erupted from the cabin where Jian Chen cultivated. The formations that Jian Chen had cast down in the past crumbled like paper before the energy, immediately shattering to pieces. The energy swept out with pressure like a storm, striking the walls of the cabin. Immediately, formations flickered on the walls and locked all the energy within the cabin, preventing it from spreading outside. The defenses of the spatial battleship were extremely great. Even though the storm of energy was very powerful, the formations blocked it easily. There were several high-class cabins on the spatial battleship. Jian Chen happened to reside in one of them. At this moment, in another cabin, Kaiya's eyes suddenly snapped open. She stared in Jian Chen's direction with shining eyes as a smile gradually appeared on her face. She murmured, "Jian Chen has broken through again." Afterwards, she seemed to think of something, and she became gloomy. She said downheartedly, "Jian Chen is becoming stronger and stronger now, but I'm struggling to make any progress at all. I always feel like there's a mysterious power preventing me from reaching a higher level of cultivation." Sighing softly, Kaiya stood up and made her way out of the cabin. Jian Chen had finished cultivating, so he walked out of the cabin where he cultivated in, standing in one of the common spaces on the spatial battleship. His bearing varied drastically from before. This was due to a metamorphosis of his existence, a qualitative leap of his vital energies. After 10 years of secluded cultivation, his chaotic body finally advanced to the 14th layer. He had reached a new level of strength. My current cultivation is equivalent to a third heavenly layer infinite prime. Of course, that's only cultivation. In terms of battle prowess, I'll definitely be far beyond the third heavenly layer of infinite prime with the strength of my chaotic body. Jian Chen clenched his fist. As he sensed the terrifying energy surging through him, he became delighted. The 14th layer of the chaotic body was equivalent to early infinite prime, but his battle prowess was on par with mid-infinite primes. Of course, mid-infinite prime was divided into 3 smaller levels, which were the 4th heavenly layer, 5th heavenly layer, and 6th heavenly layer. He needed to find an opponent and fight before he could accurately determine which heavenly layer his battle prowess had reached now. Infinite primes can be considered as experts in the saints' world. On any plane, they're people of status. Even among those peak organizations that stand at the apex of planes, infinite primes have the right to speak. Jian Chen's mood was great. Even though he knew his current strength could not garner any attention from grand primes at all, his ability to stay alive when he faced such experts had improved at the very least. Jian Chen, there are still 5 more years before we reach the star brilliance plane. Kaya walked over and said to Jian Chen. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and calmed himself from the excitement of breaking through. First, he sank into his thoughts after hearing Kaya's words before replying, I've kept 2 droplets of Gusta's essence blood. I plan on exchanging them for some 5-colored divine crystals once I get to the star brilliance plane. Moreover, there are a few more god artifacts in the Grand Prime Space Ring I obtained from the Neptunian Divine Palace. I do not need to worry about revealing these god artifacts with my current strength. I plan on auctioning them off on the star brilliance plane. Once we have enough 5-colored divine crystals, we can immediately take a teleportation formation to the Prosper plane and return the Inata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng. To Jian Chen, the only way to get to the Prosper plane was through a teleportation formation because it was just too far away. He could not afford to waste over 10,000 years traveling. As long as you return the Inata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng, all the problems you face right now will be resolved. At that time, there will be no need for us to remain under disguise. Kaya was eager as well. Jian Chen nodded. If he returned the long-lost Inata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng, his service would be so meritorious that even if the heaven-splitting ancestor wanted to lay his hands on him, he would need to consider the response from the First Majesty, Xian. Most importantly, he would be powerful enough to return to the cloud plane. It has been so long. I wonder how the Tian Yuan clan is doing. Back in the past, I was forced off the cloud plane by the pursuit of vice leader Huai and of the Empyrean demon cult. Now that my strength has completely exceeded his, I need to take revenge when I have the time, Jian Chen thought. As soon as he thought about how he and Kaya had been chased off the cloud plane, he became filled with inconcealable fury and killing intent. Even though he knew the great elder of the Empyrean demon cult was Mo Tianyun, he still planned on resolving his grievance with Huayan through bloodshed. Alright. I heard that there are members of quite a few large clans from the Jade Fluid Plane on this spatial battleship. They seem to be heading to some celebration on the Star Brilliance Plane. Perhaps you could auction a god artifact on the spatial battleship, Kaya suddenly said. I want 5-colored divine crystals. Only primordial realm experts possess 5-colored divine crystals. If they're god kings, they might not have what I want even if they come from large clans, said Jian Chen. The members of the large clans are taking part in a celebration on the Star Brilliance Plane. In reality, it's just offering up gifts. They really might have 5-colored divine crystals, said Kaya. She would constantly move around on the spatial battleship during the time Jian Chen cultivated in seclusion. She had learned a lot of information. Jian Chen mulled over her words and said, "Fair enough. I'll take out a god artifact then. If I can get all the 5-colored divine crystals I need on the spatial battleship, that would obviously be for the best." Afterwards, Jian Chen and Kaya went to the auction center. The spatial battleship was extremely large, and it used the laws of space, making it bigger on the inside. As a result, it was nothing special for a single spatial battleship to hold millions of people and possess all sorts of facilities. It was basically a special type of city. Before long, Jian Chen arrived at the largest store on the spatial battleship. There were various items placed around the store. It had a superb collection such that the entire place was bedazzling. Many cultivators moved through the place, picking out items that they needed. "I want to meet your manager. I have a large business deal to discuss with him," said Jian Chen to one of the staff as soon as he entered the store. At the same time, he tossed out some supreme-grade divine crystals. When the staff member saw how extravagant Jian Chen was, he did not dare to tarry. He greeted Jian Chen and immediately called over the manager. Very soon, a skinny, middle-aged man walked over. Under the guidance of the staff member, he arrived before Jian Chen. "I am Yu Chen, the one responsible for this store. May I ask how I can refer to you?" The middle-aged man clasped his fist towards Jian Chen amiably as he seemed to give off the pressure of a god king. He studied Jian Chen and Kaya covertly. However, when he discovered that he could not see through Jian Chen or Kaya at all, and their expressions remained the same despite the pressure he accidentally gave off, he immediately became stern. Jian Chen did not answer the question. With a flip of his hand, a large sword appeared. He said, "I want to auction this item. Will you take it or not?" The entire store became illuminated the instant the two-handed sword appeared. The dazzling treasures all paled in comparison, having been suppressed by the sword's glow. At the same time, the pressure of a god artifact radiated out, shocking everyone. At that moment, the attention of everyone in the store was drawn over to the glowing sword. The eyes of the manager of the store, Yu Chen, widened. He stared at the two-handed sword in shock as he became stunned. However, he returned to his senses before long. Ignoring his shock, he immediately used a cloth to cover the sword. His cloth was also a treasure. It was of an impressive quality and could conceal presences. Under the cloth, the glow and the pressure from the two-handed sword immediately vanished. It had all been covered up. "Please come in, please come in. We'll talk in the room for guests." Immediately, Yu Chen became excited. His eyes lit up, and he became even more enthusiastic, inviting Jian Chen and Kaya into a better room in a hurry. "A god artifact. That's a god artifact, someone is auctioning a god artifact. That's startling news, heavens, that's a god artifact. I heard that even many primordial realm experts don't possess one." After Jian Chen, Kaya, and Yu Chen had vanished, a fervent discussion immediately broke out. No one was in the mood to pick treasures for themselves anymore. The god artifact had become the center of their conversations as they talked enthusiastically. At this moment, in a well-decorated room specially used to receive the most esteemed guests on the top floor of the store, the manager, Yu Chen, sat with Jian Chen and Kaya. "This sword is a low-quality god artifact. Are you certain you want to auction it off?" All the formations had been activated in the room, concealing everything within it. Yu Chen held the huge sword as he rubbed it affectionately. He was infatuated with it. He seemed like he was touching something he loved the most. Jian Chen nodded and said indifferently, "I want to exchange this god artifact for 5-colored divine crystals. Remember, I only want 5-colored divine crystals." Yu Chen's heart shuddered when he heard that. He thought, 5-color divine crystals are only used by primordial realm experts for cultivation and taking teleportation formations between planes. Is this person a hidden primordial realm expert? Although that was what he thought, Yu-Chen showed none of it on his face. Immediately, he agreed, and he even began treating them with more politeness. He was unable to tell Jian Chen's strength, but when he saw him take out a god artifact casually, he understood that even if Jian Chen was not a primordial realm expert, he would surely have extremely astonishing origins. Next, they discussed the details. After that, Jian Chen left the god artifact with Yu Chen and returned to the cabin with Kaya. Shortly afterwards, the news of a god artifact being auctioned off soon spread across the entire spatial battleship through the advertising power of the shop. Immediately, the matter caused a huge uproar on the spatial battleship. After all, basically all of the cultivators on the spatial battleship were at godhood. There were probably only a handful of primordial realm experts. Now, a god artifact that even some primordial realm experts did not possess had been tossed into a group of godhood cultivators. Obviously, they had all become crazed for the god artifact. What did you say? A low-quality god artifact is about to be auctioned off. A young man's voice rang out from an extremely extravagant cavern high up on the spatial battleship. A god artifact has actually appeared. Fantastic. Our clan just happens to be offering up a treasure that does not stand out at all for the young Star Lord's 1000-year birthday celebration. Let's use this god artifact as the gift instead. Elder He, we have to get the god artifact. Go investigate who the owner of the god artifact is. If we gift a god artifact for the young Star Lord's 1000-year birthday celebration on the Star Brilliance plane, it'll be far better than the gift we've prepared. Although a mere god artifact is nothing to the young Star Lord with his status, it'll show off our clan a little, a powerful voice boomed out from another luxurious cabin. Wei Xiao, the person auctioning the god artifact, stated that he only wants 5-colored divine crystals. Aside from being used for teleportation formations between planes, 5-colored divine crystals are only used for cultivation by primordial realm experts. They're extremely likely to be a primordial realm expert, so it's best if we don't provoke them. The 5-colored divine crystals on me are nowhere enough to buy a low-quality god artifact, an old man smiled bitterly. There aren't many primordial realm experts on this spatial battleship at all. Moreover, how many of them would be willing to sell a god artifact? Go find the exact location of the person on the spatial battleship, and then use the name of our clan to buy the god artifact for a low price, said the young man referred to as Wei Xiao. At the same time, 6 old men sat in the air within a large room on the highest floor of the spatial battleship. Every single one of them possessed tremendous presences. Their old bodies hid extremely great power, as if even the slightest gestures from them would possess devastating might. The 6 old men were the protectors of the spatial battleship, the peak figures who watched over it. They protected the vehicle as it moved through outer space. They were all infinite primes. Interesting. There's actually someone who wants to auction off a god artifact, said one of the old men in interest. The person who wants to auction off the god artifact resides in a high-class cabin. He shouldn't be a primordial realm expert because all primordial realm experts, even if they have only broken through recently, are allowed to occupy a luxurious cabin free of cost. The person who's selling the god artifact used supreme-grade divine crystals to purchase a high-class cabin, so he should be a god king, said another man. With a single thought, he learned all the information that Jian Chen had provided when he boarded the spatial battleship. The light in the eyes of a burly primordial realm expert immediately flickered with excitement. He snickered and said, "The god artifact is a huge sword, which just happens to be perfect for me. I haven't gotten my hands on a god artifact yet, so this god artifact will be mine." With that, a huge sword appeared in his hand. It was similar to the god artifact that Jian Chen wanted to sell, except for the fact that it was only a supreme quality saint artifact. Although the old man was an infinite prime, he did not possess a god artifact. You've served the float empire of the Jade Fluid Plane for far too short. You don't have enough merit. If you wait for another few tens of thousand years, you should be able to exchange the merit you gathered through your services for a low-quality god artifact, a companion said from beside him. The burly old man shook his head and replied, a few tens of thousand years is a little too long. Who knows when I might die when I have to face space beasts in battle constantly as I watch over spatial battleships. The sooner I get a god artifact, the better it is. Only with greater strength will I have a higher chance of surviving and making it further. With that, the burly old man stood up and said, I'll go find the person and try to get the god artifact from him before it goes on auction. Otherwise, there'll probably be no chance for me with the wealth I have on me once it goes up on auction. Fa Yun, you serve the Float Empire, and this spatial battleship is the Float Empire's property. At the same time, there are rules set down by the Float Empire. You must not break them and make things difficult for us. I know what I can and can't do. The disturbance from the auctioning of a god artifact continued to build up, and Jian Chen's cabin had already been discovered by a few people of extraordinary origins through their various methods. As a result, people constantly visited where Jian Chen stayed. Most of them possessed great backgrounds and directly expressed their interest in buying the god artifact from Jian Chen through a private deal or exchanging for it with heavenly resources. Jian Chen did not turn them away. I only want 5-colored divine crystals. I don't need anything else apart from 5-colored divine crystals, Jian Chen said emotionlessly to a middle-aged man who had visited him. Who knows how many times he had said that already. Sir, we don't have 5-colored divine crystals right now, but the senior of our Myriad Water Estate does have quite a lot. You should know about the Myriad Water Estate of the Jade Fluid Plane, right? We're a large, renowned organization. You can give us the god artifact first, and the seniors of our Myriad Water Estate will go to the Star Brilliance Plane before long and give you the 5-colored divine crystals, a middle-aged man said before Jian Chen. He spoke amiably, but there was also undisguised arrogance. I refuse. Jian Chen gestured for him to leave. He no longer discussed terms with him, directly asking him to leave. Sir, don't you trust and recognize our Myriad Water Estate? The middle-aged man's face sank. Chapter 2398, The Primordial Realm Expert, I only recognize 5-colored divine crystals. If you don't have enough 5-colored divine crystals on you right now, please leave, Jian Chen stressed once again. He showed no respect, leaving no room for negotiation. The middle-aged man from the Myriad Water Estate was immediately angered. Cold light filled his eyes, and he said, Sir, are you looking down on our Myriad Water Estate? Sir, please leave, Kai Yat said indifferent from beside Jian Chen, gesturing for the man to leave. Jian Chen remained seated with his eyes closed. He did not say anything more. He did not waver at all. Humph. The middle-aged man glacéed past Jian Chen with a glare and snorted coldly before turning around dramatically and leaving. The rules of the spatial battleship were strict. They openly forbid fights outside the arena. Even the Myriad Water Estate, an organization on the same level, did not dare to disobey the rules set down by the renowned Float Empire so easily. Jian Chen, looks like the results aren't ideal. Kai Ya arrived before Jian Chen and sat down after the middle-aged man had left. She looked at Jian Chen and sighed gently. There's only a handful of primordial realm experts on the spatial battleship, and 5-colored divine crystals tend to be in their possession as well. There will obviously be a certain level of difficulty if I expect these god kings to pay a satisfactory price, Jian Chen said slowly. He understood just how valuable 5-colored divine crystals were. Back on the cloud plane, Fairy Hao Yu had even gone as far as to take personal action and eliminate a powerful enemy for someone else just to gather up enough 5-colored divine crystals to return to the Moon God Hall. Evidently, even to primordial realm experts, 5-colored divine crystals were very valuable. I still have a few god artifacts on me. I planned on selling a few of them to get some 5-color divine crystals, but it looks like I was a little too hopeful. Now, I can only wait for the auction to start. I hope that the infinite primes on the spatial battleship don't disappoint me, Jian Chen said softly. He kept his eyes closed the entire time and did not move at all. It was like he was meditating. Before long, there was a sudden flash before Jian Chen, and an extremely burly, 3-meter-tall old man silently appeared. The old man was especially large. He was like a small giant. Jian Chen seemed insignificant as he sat before him. The old man studied Jian Chen, and the light in his eyes flickered. He, I am Fa Yun, and I serve the Float Empire. I am one of the protectors of this spatial battleship. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and stared at Fa Yun calmly. He said, "You must have come for the god artifact as well. Do you have enough 5-colored divine crystals?" "I obviously have 5-colored divine crystals," said Fa Yun with a snicker. With a flip of his hand, a huge gourd half a meter tall appeared. He said to Jian Chen, "There's wine that I've personally made in this gourd. I used 999 renowned heavenly resources and 1,000 years to make it. It's my proudest work. Come, try my wine first, and then we can talk about the matter of exchanging slowly." Before Jian Chen could reply, Fa Yun swung his hand, and the huge gourd immediately flew towards Jian Chen. It was more like smashing instead of flying because the gourd moved just too quickly. Anyone could tell that it was smashing towards Jian Chen. Powerful energy was contained within the gourd as well. Although it did not possess killing intent, it was enough to make any god king suffer greatly and become disheveled. Clearly, Fa Yun wanted to use this to test Jian Chen. Jian Chen's face did not change. He extended his right hand at a steady but lightning-fast pace and firmly caught the wine gourd before patting its side gently. Immediately, a stream of wine as thick as a finger shot out and landed in his mouth with great accuracy. Jian Chen did not stand up throughout the entire process. He remained seated, as still as a mountain, with a calm expression. Fa Yun's eyes immediately narrowed when he witnessed this. "What good wine! It truly is aged." Jian Chen praised from the bottom of his heart before patting the gourd gently again. Immediately, it flew back to Fa Yun with the same speed. Clearly, Jian Chen was returning it to him. However, when Fa Yun caught the gourd, his old eyes immediately lit up. His body shook, and having been caught off guard, he was almost pushed backwards. "The primordial realm!" Fa Yun cried out as surprise filled his face. His gaze towards Jian Chen underwent an overwhelming change. "I've tried your wine, so let's talk about the price. May I ask just how many 5-colored divine crystals you've prepared?" Jian Chen asked. "You really have hidden well. I never thought you would be a primordial realm expert yet reside in a high-class cabin. It has truly surprised me," Fa Yun said. Immediately, he changed his attitude after learning that Jian Chen was a primordial realm expert. Although he failed to discover Jian Chen's strength, just being a primordial realm expert was enough for Jian Chen to stand on equal ground with him. Fa Yun sat down slowly before Jian Chen, but even when he was seated, Jian Chen needed to raise his head slightly to make eye contact. "I have around 505 colored divine crystals on me right now," Fa Yun said after hesitating for a while. Jian Chen frowned when he heard that. His voice became rather serious, and he said, "Only 500? That's nowhere near enough. A low-quality god artifact is worth far more than that." Fa Yun fell silent. Originally, he planned on overwhelming Jian Chen with his identity as a primordial realm expert and buy the god artifact from him at a lower price. But in the end, he never expected Jian Chen to be a primordial realm expert as well, so his earlier thoughts clearly would not work out. "I'll find a way to gather some more 5-colored divine crystals." With that, Fa Yun directly left. During the next few days, the people who visited Jian Chen gradually decreased. Everyone had learnt that Jian Chen was stubborn. He only wanted 5-colored divine crystals and left no room for negotiation, so they obviously did not visit him again. Of course, Jian Chen offended quite a few people during those days. There were even a few people with larger backgrounds who directly threatened him. Fa Yun did not go to find Jian Chen in the next few days either. In the blink of an eye, the day of the auction arrived. The god artifact from Jian Chen was placed in the auction center, shining with dazzling light. Powerful formations protected it, preventing anyone from stealing it. The surroundings were absolutely packed. Everyone stared at the god artifact with undisguised interest and desire. Jian Chen and Kaya had arrived in a viewing box specially prepared for them, paying close attention to the activity of the auction. All the authoritative people on the spatial battleship had gathered as well. They were seated in various viewing boxes. Jian Chen, I feel like your auction this time won't be very successful. There might be a few people who will secretly interfere with it. Kaya sat before Jian Chen in the viewing box and said with some worry. Let's wait and see. Jian Chen remained calm instead. He was already a primordial realm expert, and he was not as weak as someone who had just reached the primordial realm. He was confident enough about facing all the problems that would occur. After all, even the strongest on the spatial battleship were infinite primes. It was impossible for chaotic primes to be here. Chapter 2399, The Darkness Clan. Seeing how confident Jian Chen was and that he feared nothing, Kaya immediately eased up. Indeed, Jian Chen had become even more powerful after his breakthrough, making him a peak expert on this spatial battleship. There was truly no need for him to be overly fearful here. This was because strength was the supreme law that decided everything. Before great strength, all schemes and plans would become irrelevant. At the same time, the most important members of the spatial battleship, the primordial realm experts who watched over the ship, also gathered together. They sat in the air and paid close attention to everything to do with the auction. The burly Fa Yun was among them. I never thought he would actually be at the primordial realm. It's a pity that he has purposefully masked himself, so we can't see through his strength. Fa Yun, did you manage to find out about that? Asked one of the old men. The burly Fa Yun, who sat there like a hill, shook his head gently. He said, I could not figure out his strength from the simple test before. However, I feel like he's no weaker than me. In other words, this person is a second heavenly layer infinite prime at the very least. Since he's also a primordial realm expert, it's probably impossible for you to buy the god artifact with a cheap price. Fa Yun smiled mysteriously when he heard that. He said, it's not just me who wants the god artifact. The members of the large clans have already interfered with the entire procession secretly. They've controlled the auction center through the influence of their clans. The price of the god artifact won't be high. It's a perfect opportunity for me. However, I might have to borrow some 5-colored divine crystals from you all. Yeah. No matter how low the price is, it can't go overboard. It would not matter too much if he was just a god king with no background, but he's a primordial realm expert after all. The protectors of the spatial battleship were clearly cautious when they faced a fellow primordial realm expert. They did not want to offend him over something as small as a few 5-colored divine crystals. Now, the auction had formally begun. A beautiful young woman stood on the stage, hosting the auction by introducing each auction treasure in great detail, making the various cultivators below contend for it. The god artifact had been designated as the core item of the auction, so it was obviously placed at the end. As a result, the items auctioned first were items that did not interest primordial realm experts at all. They were only effective for godhood cultivators. However, even with that being the case, many godhood cultivators took part in the auction. It was a bustling scene. Jian Chen remained as calm as still water within his viewing box, sitting there and waiting patiently. He did not take part in the bids for any item because all of them had become useless to him now. A few other viewing boxes waited in a similar manner, without participating in the bidding wars. They had only come for one purpose, and that was for the low-quality god artifact that would appear. Finally, after 3 days, the auction approached its end. "Everyone, what we will be auctioning next will be the core treasure of our auction this time, a low-quality god artifact." As the host said that, the entire auction center immediately fell quiet. At that moment, everyone held their breaths as burning interest filled their eyes. It said that even many infinite primes don't possess a god artifact, which is more than enough to show just how precious a god artifact is. Its price can even be described as inestimable. "It is truly an invaluable treasure," said the host excitedly from the stage. Her pleasant, chime-like voice was infectious, making all the godhood cultivators feel their blood flow faster. "This god artifact can only be bid on with 5-colored divine crystals. Due to god artifacts being far too precious, setting a reserve price would be sullying their fame. As a result, the auction for this god artifact will be slightly different from the other items. There will be no reserve price. Only like this can it truly be regarded as a priceless treasure. We won't dirty the name of god artifacts." "What? They only accept 5-colored divine crystals? Where are we supposed to find 5-colored divine crystals? This is far too unfair. Why is it restricted to 5-colored divine crystals? Can't we use supreme-grade divine crystals?" With that, an uproar immediately broke out in the auction center. Not all the cultivators had contacted Jian Chen, so they obviously had no idea that only 5-colored divine crystal would be accepted as bids. Now that they had suddenly heard this, the cultivators who had prepared a large quantity of supreme-grade divine crystals and heavenly resources naturally struggled to accept the situation. Jian Chen opened his eyes slowly at that moment. His face sank slightly, and a sliver of coldness flashed through his eyes. He said, "No reserve price. Doesn't that mean that if no one bids for the god artifact, it'll be sold for an extremely low price in the end?" Kaya was also angered. She said furiously, "It must be the handiwork of those large clans. My worry is that the large clans have secretly reached an agreement with one another, sending only a single person to bid and buy the god artifact. The Darkness clan from the central region of the Jade Fluid Plain bids 10 5-colored divine crystals." At this moment, a call rang out from one of the viewing boxes. It came from a young man who directly declared his background. "The Darkness clan of the Jade Fluid Plain is the last peak clan you would want to offend. I heard that the Darkness bloodline that has existed since the ancient times flows through the veins of the Darkness clan. The bloodline allows them to have a natural advantage in comprehending the laws of darkness, making them natural kings in the dark. The Darkness clan is a clan known for their assassins. They're very powerful." Muffled discussions immediately started in the surroundings of the auction. After the person from the Darkness clan had bid, no one else decided to contend. 10 5-colored divine crystals, Jian Chen murmured. As expected, the large clans had reached a secret agreement to not engage in a bidding war and prevent the price from rising. In the end, they wanted to purchase the god artifact at the lowest cost possible. Who the god artifact ended up with was not Jian Chen's concern. The Darkness clan has bid 10 5-colored divine crystals. Are there any higher prices? 10 5-colored divine crystals going once, said the auction host. Is this priceless god artifact really going to be purchased for 10 5-colored divine crystals? 10 5-colored divine crystals is equivalent to 10 million supreme quality divine crystals, which is 10 blocks. Buying a god artifact with 10 blocks of supreme quality divine crystals is ripping them off, god damn it. If it weren't for the fact that 5-colored divine crystals can't be exchanged here, I can take out several dozen of them easily, and I'll be able to contend with the bid. Many godhood experts were filled with great pity. They found pity in how cheap the god artifact was. Originally, they thought the god artifact would be pushed up to a stunning price, but unexpectedly, someone only offered 10 5-colored divine crystals. The price was not even 1/100th of its real value. 10 5-colored divine crystals going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? The host called out once again. Her voice was filled with powerlessness. The infinite primes gathered at the top of the spatial battleship all shook their heads. The Darkness clan is just too vicious. This is a god artifact, yet they only offered 10 5-colored divine crystals. That's basically sullying the value of a god artifact. The Darkness clan has indeed gone a little too far, the infinite primes all stated their thoughts. Chapter 2400, Under Attack in Outer Space. 1. Fa Yun sank into his thoughts. He furrowed his brows as the light in his eyes flickered. He seemed to be faced with an intense dilemma. He was a primordial realm expert, yet he still used a supreme quality saint artifact. Now, a god artifact had appeared, and it was a two-handed sword. Such a weapon suited him the most. He dreamed of possessing a suitable god artifact like this, so he had already made up his mind about obtaining it. If he wielded a god artifact, his strength would directly rise to a new level, allowing his battle prowess to increase dramatically. Moreover, he was already prepared to take part in the bidding war against the large clans. Although the large clans were renowned on the Jade Fluid Plane, he had the support of the Float Empire. He did not need to fear the descendants and juniors of those large clans because he served the Float Empire. This was because the peak organizations would never offend a primordial realm expert for a low-quality god artifact. However, he never expected the people to bid to be the Darkness clan. The Darkness clan ranked third on the Jade Fluid Plane, making them even more powerful than the Float Empire, which ranked fourth. Every single member of the clan was skilled with the laws of darkness, and all of them were masterful assassins. They were truly lawless on the Jade Fluid Plane and were a bad target to provoke. Fa Yun did not need to fear the juniors of other peak clans because he served the Float Empire, but that did not include the Darkness clan. Fa Yun, are you still going to bid for the god artifact? Asked a primordial realm companion beside him. Fa Yun remained silently. He was conflicted inside. The Darkness clan was not reasonable. As soon as he bid a price, he would be directly offending the Darkness clan. At this moment, a few people of various ages were gathered in the viewing box of the Darkness clan. Among them was a handsome young man who seemed to be in his 20s. The young man was the leader of the group. Even though he was only an early god king, his status was extremely great. He was the 13th son of the current patriarch of the Darkness clan, Anya Joyo. Anya Joyo's talent was clear since a young age, cultivating to early god king in just 5,000 years. He was the most resplendent star in the current Darkness clan and was treated with great significance. Young Master Joyo, looks like the god artifact is ours. Buying a low-quality god artifact with 10 5-colored divine crystals is glorious for young Master Joyo, said a middle-aged man. He smiled with great politeness from beside Anya Joyo. Anya Joyo remained calm. He showed no joy at all, as if this was nothing significant to him. He said coldly, the people from the clans of the Jade Fluid Plane sure are obedient. Young Master Joyo will take command of our Darkness clan in the future. Even if these people were bolder, they would never offend young Master Joyo, said the middle-aged man, flattering the young man. With that, an old man seated there as well opened his eyes. He glanced at the middle-aged man in great disgust and said, I'm afraid the owner of the god artifact won't just let it go like this. The eyes of Anya Joyo turned cold. He said, so what? I've followed the rules of the auction and won it righteously. If he has any problems, he can come find me. Young Master Joyo, have you ever considered that we might have guessed wrong, and they're not really a god king but a primordial realm expert? Asked the old man sternly. So what if he's a primordial realm expert? Primordial realm experts who remain in the high-class cabins are often the most useless primordial realm experts. If he has any problems, he's more than welcome to come and find me, Anya Joyo said arrogantly. He completely looked down on the seller. The old man sighed gently and thought, it would be fine if he's just a god king. We can just kill him in that case. However, if he's a primordial realm expert, offending him over a low-quality god artifact isn't a clever decision. Anya Joyo sneered and said, moreover, I'm certain that he won't have the courage. Even the organizations that rank first and second on the Jade Fluid Plane have to show our Darkness clan respect. However, as soon as Anya Joyo said that, a voice rang out. Hold on. This god artifact won't be sold for anything less than 5,000 five-colored divine crystals. Jian Chen had spoken from his viewing box. His voice was very calm. It rang across the entire auction center and clearly left no room for negotiation. How could he let his low-quality god artifact be bought for a low price of just 10 five-colored divine crystals? His voice immediately silenced the entire auction center. Even the host became stunned. Jian Chen's attitude was so firm that he even ignored the rules of the auction center. The price of any item would be decided through the auction. Even if the seller wanted to request a certain price, he would have to do it before the auction started and not now when the item was about to be sold. This completely broke the rules of the auction center. Anya Joyo's face sank in the viewing box of the Darkness clan. Coldness appeared in his eyes. I know this voice. It's the person who brought out the god artifact, said the middle-aged man who had been sucking up to the young master. Humph, Anya Joyo snorted coldly. He growled and said, my Darkness clan has already bid. Sir, you're raising the price on the spot, right after our Darkness clan has bid. Are you purposefully creating problems for our Darkness clan? Moreover, the auction center has its rules. I advise you to respect those rules. Rules? Are the rules of the auction center removing the reserve price and collaborating with others such that items can be sold at extremely low prices? If those are the rules of the auction center, is there even a need to follow them? Will anyone be bold enough to sell their items here in the future? Jian Chen said righteously. With that, a buzz immediately filled the auction center. All the people present discussed among themselves quietly. They all blamed the auction center. What was happening right now was clear to everyone. A precious god artifact had only reached 10 five-colored divine crystals, and no one else placed a bid. It was basically obvious that someone was pulling strings. Where was the fairness? 5,000 five-colored divine crystals is the reserve price for this god artifact. Everyone is welcome to continue bidding, Jian Chen said once again. He ignored the auction center and the Darkness clan, setting down his own rule. How bold of this person to not even fear the Darkness clan, murmured the middle-aged man from the Myriad Water Estate who had spoken to Jian Chen threateningly a few days ago. It's very likely that he's at the primordial realm, said the old man to Anya Joyo. Killing intent immediately filled Anya Joyo's eyes. Suddenly, he looked at the old man and said icily, go ask the spectral elder to take action. Anyone who ignores our Darkness clan cannot be permitted to live. Chapter 2401, Under Attack in Outer Space, 2, At this moment, a skinny, black-robed old man sat in an extremely well-decorated cabin on the spatial battleship. The old man's appearance was nothing special. He was the type that would not catch anyone's attention at all in a crowd. He kept his presence concealed, so he seemed like an ordinary person. The skinny old man was the spectral elder that Anya Joyo referred to. He was an infinite prime of the Darkness clan and was here to escort Anya Joyo to the Star Brilliance plane. He was responsible for Anya Joyo's safety. Before the spectral elder stood the old man who accompanied Anya Joyo before. He passed on what Anya Joyo said word for word to the spectral elder. Joyo wants the person who's auctioning the god artifact dead. After learning the entire story, the spectral elder opened his eyes slowly. His eyes were gloomy, possessing no light or emotions at all. He seemed like someone who regularly roamed the night, constantly covering himself. Even now, it was very difficult for him to raise a lot of attention. At this moment, the spectral elder closed his eyes, and the powerful senses of his soul emanated to the top floor of the spatial battleship. Before long, he opened his eyes again and said slowly, "The subjects of the Float Empire have already confirmed the person to be a primordial realm expert. Jiuyo has been a little too reckless with this matter." "Spectral Elder, what should we do now?" asked the old man politely. "Although Jiuyo has been rather reckless, he is the most impressive junior of the Darkness clan, and it's extremely likely for him to take over the clan. Since he wants this person dead, I'll do it," said the Spectral Elder indifferently. It was like assassinating primordial realm experts was a daily task for him. The people of the Darkness clan possessed an ancient Darkness bloodline that made them natural kings of the dark. They were all assassins and were skilled at assassination. Even against opponents more powerful than themselves, they could use sudden sneak attacks to take their lives when their guards were lowered. Even if the sneak attack failed, they could use their natural advantage to hide in the darkness. They could become invisible and simply retreat. As a result, although the Darkness clan ranked third on the Jade Fluid plane, even the organizations that ranked first and second did not want to provoke them without good reason. Perhaps the battle prowess of the people from the Darkness clan was not the greatest, but they were definitely the most difficult to deal with. Bang! At this moment, a heavy sound suddenly rang out and filled every inch of the spatial battleship. Afterwards, the entire spatial battleship shook violently. Caught off guard, many of the cultivators on the ship almost fell over. The many cultivators gathered in the auction center fell into disorder. Cries and curses constantly rang out. The ship shook far too severely. Moreover, since the crowd in the auction center had directed their focus elsewhere, many of them were caught off guard and collided with the people beside them, creating chaos there. Space beasts are attacking. Everyone, return to your respective cabins immediately. The powerful senses of the soul swept over as a great voice boomed through the heads of every single cultivator thunderously. God damn it, why have we come across space beasts again? How many waves has it been? We were warned beforehand when we encountered space beasts the last few times. Why did the reminder come so late? Grumbles rang out from various places on the spatial battleship. The cultivators gathered there all moved as quickly as they could, returning to their cabins in an orderly manner. Their journey through outer space had not been smooth. They had encountered attacks from space beasts many times, so everyone had grown accustomed to this. They did not find it strange. Boom! At this moment, another great rumble rang out. The spatial battleship endured an extremely violent attack, causing it to shake intensely. Compared to before, it shook countless times more vigorously. The spatial battleship seemed to be knocked away, and the inertia made it difficult for all the cultivators to stand firm. Many were thrown into the air and rammed against their cabins heavily. Among these people, a large number became bumped and bruised. Everyone, return to your cabins immediately and channel energy into the formation. The great voice rang out from the top floor again, booming through every corner of the spatial battleship. It was extremely stern. Every single spatial battleship was like a flying fortress. It was covered with formations that connected every region together. They were extremely powerful. Every cabin had a point where energy could be provided such that all the cultivators on board could provide energy to the formations of the spatial battleship to fend off outside attacks. However, they would not do that for every single attack from space beasts. The spatial battleship would only borrow the energy from all the cultivators when the spatial battleship itself was threatened, and it was difficult to fend off the situation outside using the ship alone. As a result, the hearts of all the cultivators on the spatial battleship sank when they heard that they needed to channel their energy. All of them had clearly realized that they had probably encountered a huge danger this time. The ongoing auction was forced to come to a halt as well. "Sir, please come to the deck." At the same time, an old voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. One of the protectors who served the Float Empire had communicated to him from the top floor. "Kaya, let's go to the deck and have a look." Meanwhile, Jian Chen remained extremely composed. Kaya nodded and left the viewing box with Jian Chen, arriving on the deck of the spatial battleship. It was possible to see the endless cosmos clearly from the deck. From this place, the stars would rapidly recede in the surroundings. However, the spatial battleship had become surrounded by many space beasts now. The space beasts were several dozen meters long. They were completely golden, and their shapes were extremely strange as well. They seemed like sharp swords. At this moment, many space beasts had gathered around the spatial battleship. They launched attacks wildly at the protective formations. The powerful formations of the spatial battleship constantly distorted and twisted under the fierce barrage of attacks. The power of the formations was rapidly depleting. At the same time, deafening booms rang out, shaking the entire ship violently. It was like the ship was getting knocked away. There were powerful existences equivalent to the primordial realm among the space beasts, and there were many of them. Golden sword beasts, limbless, sword-shaped, and extremely tough. They move through outer space at extremely great speeds and use the tip of their bodies to stab their opponents. The information regarding the species of space beast flashed through his mind the moment he saw them. He was no longer as ignorant as before. Even though he did not have any in-depth knowledge about the beasts that lived in outer space, he knew about them to a certain degree. Golden sword beasts form huge swarms. There will be many of them every time the swarm moves. Now that the spatial battleship has been surrounded by golden sword beasts, it'll be very difficult to break free if we don't kill them. The spatial battleship moves very quickly, but it's still difficult to outspeed primordial realm golden sword beasts. After all, they live in outer space and thrive here. Shaking them off won't be easy. Jian Chen thought quickly and understood the situation that they faced. Sir, you must understand the situation we face right now as well. The formations on the spatial battleship cannot be maintained for too long. If we don't kill these golden sword beasts, everyone will be in trouble once the formations run out of energy. After all, the golden sword beasts possess astonishing speed in outer space, and there are even existences equivalent to us at the primordial realm. They can even outspeed the spatial battleship. Once we lose the spatial battleship, it'll be impossible for us to shake them off with our strength in outer space. An old voice rang out. The 6 people who served the Float Empire gathered together on another part of the deck. They were all stern as they made their way towards Jian Chen. The one who spoke was a white-robed old man. He was ruddy and seemed rather sage-like. However, his eyebrows were as straight and sharp as swords, giving him a piercing presence. 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime. Jian Chen's heart leapt. He saw through the old man's strength. He was the most powerful person out of the 6 primordial realm experts, having reached peak Infinite Prime. The 5 other old men were much weaker compared to him. Clearly, they followed his lead. The Fa Yun that Jian Chen encountered several days ago also happened to be among them. I am Giant Pain. I hope that you can assist us in killing the golden sword beasts, continued the 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime, requesting Jian Chen's assistance sincerely. I can already sense 12 presences that belong to the primordial realm among the golden sword beasts. One of them is close to chaotic prime. It'll be extremely difficult for us few to kill them all, said Jian Chen. Do not worry, sir. There are a few more people at the primordial realm on the ship. They've already come, Jian Pain said. With that, another 2 people arrived on the deck as expected. They were a middle-aged man of medium stature and an extremely handsome young man. Including Jian Chen, a total of 9 primordial realm experts had now gathered on the deck. 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes. Jian Chen glanced past the 2 primordial realm experts and saw through their strengths with a single glance, causing him to shake his head secretly. It would be fine if the 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes possessed extraordinary battle prowess, but they would struggle to protect themselves if they were just regular infinite primes. This was because the battle prowess of golden sword beasts were able to overwhelm cultivators of the same level. As a result, only those with extraordinary battle prowess could handle one of these space beasts at the same level of cultivation. Boom! At this moment, the spatial battleship shook violently again. The 12 primordial realm golden sword beasts all launched powerful attacks. Under the leadership of the golden sword beast that had almost reached chaotic prime, a total of 12 primordial realm strikes landed on the same location of the spatial battleship. It was devastating. The combined might of the strikes had surpassed infinite prime and reached chaotic prime. The strikes immediately ripped open a great hole in the formations of the spatial battleship. The formations rapidly dimmed, and their defenses suddenly plummeted. I'll keep the most powerful golden sword beast busy. I'll leave the rest to you. Time was tight, so it was already too late for them to come up with any special arrangements. With that, Jian Pain left the spatial battleship first, engaging in a battle with the strongest golden sword beast. Immediately, booms rang out, and the entire region distorted. Powerful sword chi engulfed the battlefield, ripping open gashes in space. Jian Pain comprehended the laws of the sword. Not only was he the person with the greatest cultivation on the spatial battleship, but he was also the one with the most terrifying battle prowess. Against Jian Pain was a golden sword beast that was thousands of meters long. It flickered with golden light and constantly stabbed and slashed at Jian Pain like a huge flying sword. It was extremely fast. At the same time, the 5 other primordial realm protectors from the Float Empire charged off at the spatial beasts. They each kept a primordial realm golden sword beast busy. Only Jian Chen and the other 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes remained on the spatial battleship now. Jian Chen remained calm, but the 2 other infinite primes were stern as if they were about to face a great enemy. Jian Chen, primordial realm golden sword beasts are basically covered in treasure. They're priceless, so don't forget to collect their corpses, said Kaya to remind him. She had spent a long period of time with him, and they had fought together many times as well. She understood Jian Chen's strength extremely well, so she did not worry about him at all. Brother, do not get blinded by greed. The golden sword beasts are very powerful. The slightest carelessness can even claim the lives of primordial realm experts. Surviving is what's important, said the middle-aged man nearby to Jian Chen. With that, he charged off into space, beginning a battle with the weakest primordial realm golden sword beast. In the end, the handsome young man glanced past Jian Chen indifferently. He said nothing and charged off the spatial battleship. Kaya, take care of yourself. Jian Chen reminded Kaya and stopped hesitating. With a single step, he charged towards the crack in the formation and arrived at the battlefield. The 8 primordial realm experts kept 8 golden sword beasts busy. Apart from the strongest Jian Pain, none of the others faced the golden sword beasts in open combat. They maneuvered their way around the beasts. Jian Pain engaged in an extremely intense battle to the death against the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden beast. There are 4 more primordial realm golden sword beasts left. 2 of them are at the 2nd heavenly layer, 1 is at the 3rd heavenly layer, and 1 is at the 6th heavenly layer. Jian Chen glanced past the 4 other golden sword beasts. The 4 golden sword beasts continued their wild attack at the spatial battleship. Due to their lesser intelligence, they did not know how to adapt to the situation. They only mindlessly followed the orders of their leader, attacking the formations of the spatial battleship. Even when cultivators brushed past them, they would completely ignore them as long as the orders from their leader were not completed yet. As a result, the spatial battleship would remain their target as long as they were not provoked. Even though these space beasts possessed an advantage in terms of battle prowess, they suffered from a fatal disadvantage of low intelligence. At this moment, a powerful sword intent suddenly appeared. It surged and seemed to be filled with a supreme bearing of the ways. It was like the ruler of the world had arrived, making everything in the surroundings yield to him. Even the supreme laws and order in the surroundings changed ever so slightly. Jian Chen struck out. He was clad in light as his bearing became abstruse, filled with a sense of immortal. His will engulfed a region of 100,000 kilometers. Wherever his will was present, all the powers below him became his own way, something that he could control. At that moment, Jian Chen seemed to rule over the world as he unleashed his bearing as a sword immortal. This was the ultimate way of the sword he had comprehended. At this moment, he slowly raised his right hand, and he pointed it above him. Immediately, all the godhood golden sword beasts within a range of 100,000 kilometers froze. In the next moment, heavy booms erupted. All the golden sword beasts there actually exploded. Golden body fragments and dazzling golden blood surged out like a flood. All of it gathered above Jian Chen, forming a huge sword completely condensed from the remains of the golden sword beasts. The golden sword beasts had been killed by Jian Chen's powerful will. Jian Chen comprehended the ultimate way of the sword, so he was a ruler that possessed the power to kill all things. His will had become the laws of the world there, forming his own domain. Within it, all existences and powers below him were under his control. A single thought was all he needed to decide life or death. In the blink of an eye, a range of 100,000 kilometers around Jian Chen emptied out. All the golden sword beasts there vanished. Under the control of his powerful will, they all gathered above his head, turning into a colossal sword forged from blood and flesh that shone with dazzling golden light. This was the first time Jian Chen had truly fought after becoming a sword immortal and comprehending the ultimate way of the sword. The might of his attack this time was world-shaking. It formed a terrifying scene such that all the primordial realm experts who were busy fighting their golden sword beasts looked over in shock. What powerful sword intent! What is this ability? It's so astonishing. Jian Pain, who fought against the 9th heavenly layer golden sword beast, noticed the disturbance near Jian Chen as well. When he looked at the huge sword condensed from the remains of many golden sword beasts above Jian Chen's head, he struggled to remain composed. This was because even he could not create such a grand scene. He actually killed so many golden sword beasts in the blink of an eye. What is this secret technique? Originally, I thought he was only a regular primordial realm expert because he was hiding in the high-class cabins. I never thought he would be so powerful. The 5 other primordial realm experts of the Float Empire were shaken up as well. Even though the godhood golden sword beasts were really nothing to them, it was still rather terrifying for someone to kill so many of them in a single moment. I'm probably not his opponent. I didn't offend him earlier, right? Fa Yun looked at Jian Chen, who stood in outer space like a sword. At this moment, he became filled with fear. Suddenly, there was a flash of intense white light. Sharp sword chi swept out. The huge sword condensed from the remains of the golden sword beasts above Jian Chen's head suddenly shone with dazzling light. It was so bright that it illuminated the entire space like a sun. The huge sword suddenly fell with powerful sword chi. Its target was one of 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beasts attacking the spatial battleship. Even though the golden sword beast had low intellect, it could still sense danger instinctively. Immediately, it stopped its attacks and turned around. It turned into a streak of golden light and stabbed towards Jian Chen. It was extremely fast, vanishing with a flash. However, no matter how fast it was unable to avoid Jian Chen's slash because his will had already locked onto it. Unless its strength exceeded Jian Chen's, it would not be able to avoid Jian Chen's attack. Boom! Jian Chen used the sword condensed from the remains of the beast's companions to slash the 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast, producing a heavy sound. The 2nd heavenly layer golden sword beast was blown away by the strike. A deep gash appeared on its body, and golden blood flowed out. Even though the golden sword beast managed to survive, it was heavily injured by Jian Chen's attack. Its light dimmed. With just the first attack, Jian Chen had heavily injured an extremely tough golden sword beast, a creature that was extremely difficult to deal with. Jian Chen stepped out and crossed through outer space in pursuit. His will enveloped the surroundings such that all the godhood golden sword beasts within 100,000 kilometers of him exploded and died. They were all killed by his will. With just a few flashes, Jian Chen arrived before the heavily injured golden sword beast. He extended his arm, and his hand shone with dazzling light. He pressed it against the colossal sword-shaped body of the golden sword beast. Immediately, the golden sword beast shook violently. The supreme power of the laws of the sword poured into its body through Jian Chen's hand, wreaking havoc inside its body. The golden sword beast struggled wildly, but it was unable to break free from Jian Chen's hand no matter how it resisted. Its wounds became heavier and heavier, and its life force rapidly leaked away. It was becoming weaker and weaker. A few seconds later, the golden sword beast stopped struggling. It lay in outer space, still. Its consciousness had been wiped out by Jian Chen. This was equivalent to a cultivator's soul shattering and dispersing. It was completely dead. How is that possible? He actually killed a second heavenly layer golden sword beast so quickly. How is this person so terrifying? All the primordial realm experts paid close attention to the details of the battlefield. They obviously saw Jian Chen kill the golden sword beast, so they were all shocked. They felt emotional turmoil. I can sense that his cultivation isn't that much greater than the golden sword beast, yet it was unable to fight back at all against him. It looks like his origins are not simple. It's extremely likely for him to be a figure from some ancient organization. Jian Pain glanced at Jian Chen deeply. At that moment, Jian Chen actually became mysterious to him. Whether it was Jian Chen's way of the sword or his battle prowess, they were both extremely astonishing. Neither of them was something a regular primordial realm expert could possess, so Jian Pain became suspicious about Jian Chen's origins. The black-robed spectral elder of the Darkness clan hid his presence and traces with a secret technique in another region of space. He seemed to have fused with the darkness, preventing anyone from noticing him. He stared at Jian Chen in the distance indifferently as he quietly paid attention to all of his actions. He was ready to assassinate Jian Chen. This person is extremely powerful. He's definitely not as simple as having just reached the primordial realm like I previously imagined. He probably has a great background. Do I kill him or not? Thought the spectral elder. Originally, he was prepared to kill Jian Chen. After all, regular primordial realm experts were nothing in his eyes. However, after he witnessed the strength Jian Chen displayed when he killed the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast, he ended up hesitating. Very few members of their Darkness clan fought in open confrontations. What they were truly skilled with were assassinations, killing by delivering a fatal strike while the enemy was unaware. They would often be able to kill people even more powerful than themselves. As a result, the spectral elder did not fear Jian Chen. What really made him hesitate was Jian Chen's background and origins. He was afraid of offending a large organization and making trouble for the clan. He would take the risk and attack without any hesitation if there were any great treasures or profits on the line. However, this entire matter occurred because of a low-quality god artifact and Anya Joyo's impulsive actions. The spectral elder had to reconsider. Jian Chen had already begun stowing the golden sword beast's corpse away now. He did not care about the godhood golden sword beasts because they were not particularly valuable in his eyes. However, he needed to take note of the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast before him. The corpses of golden sword beasts were filled with treasure. Their hides were one of the best materials for forging weapons, and some formations required components of their bodies. Their blood was a crucial material in refining pills and possessed many other wondrous uses. As a matter of fact, the entire corpse of a golden sword beast could even be handed to a blacksmith and directly forged into a powerful weapon. If the golden sword beast before him was forged into a weapon, it would definitely be a god artifact. As a result, the corpse of the golden sword beast was a sizable sum of 5-colored divine crystals in Jian Chen's eyes. With a wave of his hand, the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast's corpse vanished from outer space. He had stowed it into his space ring. He did not pause after that. He struck out once again, targeting the golden sword beast at the same level as the one he just killed. Killing the weaker golden sword beasts was relatively easy for him. He could kill the third heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast if he fought it, but the fight would definitely take a lot longer. As a result, he specially targeted weaker opponents in hopes of killing the golden sword beasts as quickly as possible so that he could make their corpses his. Even though the corpse of a second heavenly layer golden sword beast is not worth as much as a forged god artifact, they're still worth 1,000 5-colored divine crystals at the very least, thought Jian Chen. Killing intent flashed through his eyes as sword chi surged from him. He had already begun to battle the second golden sword beast. At the same time, the formations on the spatial battleship were ripped open. Many godhood golden sword beasts formed a golden flow, surging towards the spatial battleship wildly. The various godhood cultivators on the spatial battleship had come to face them in battle now. They blocked the golden sword beasts on the deck. In a single moment, red and golden blood merged together, covering the entire deck. Meanwhile, various killing formations on the spatial battleship were activated. The weaker cultivators remained in their cabins, providing energy to the spatial battleship. As a result, the entire ship flickered resplendently. Many of the golden sword beasts were torn to pieces as soon as they came in contact with the killing formations. Golden blood splattered everywhere. The bloodbath between the cultivators and the golden sword beasts had reached a high intensity. It was no longer a battle between primordial realm experts only. It was a full-blown battle now. The battle between the primordial realm experts in outer space was the most violent. Half of the primordial realm experts were injured now. Their battle prowess was more ordinary, so they completely lost the upper hand against the golden sword beasts at the same level of cultivation. Even if they fought golden sword beasts that were a heavenly layer lower, they would only barely gain the upper hand. Killing them would be basically impossible. The golden sword beasts were extremely tough. It would be very difficult to inflict fatal injuries to them unless one's strength completely overshadowed them or an extraordinarily powerful attack was used. Only Yi Jianping managed to keep the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast suppressed with the offensive power of the laws of the sword he had comprehended, barely gaining the upper hand. But that was all. It was still impossible for Yi Jianping to kill the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. At this moment, a wondrous mental pulse was transmitted. It was filled with pain and grief. The second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast had been killed by Jian Chen as well with lightning speed. In just a short while, 2 of the 12 primordial realm golden sword beasts had died to Jian Chen's hands. The death of the second primordial realm golden sword beast finally angered the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. Immediately, it emitted a powerful mental pulse filled with anger. Golden sword beasts had no limbs or openings. They just seemed like golden swords. They were a unique beast that thrived in outer space, naturally born from special circumstances. As a result, they used their minds to communicate with one another. The 2 other primordial realm golden sword beasts, one at the 3rd heavenly layer and one at the 6th heavenly layer, both stopped their attacks at the spatial battleship when they heard the furious mental pulse. It was like they had received new orders. They both turned around and pointed their tips at Jian Chen. They charged towards him with surging killing intent. Jian Chen became stern. He did not dare to be careless when he had to face both a third and sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast simultaneously. He immediately became cautious. Whatever. I'll just use you to test my true strength, thought Jian Chen. He felt no fear. Instead, this fight roused his battle intent. His presence surged as he directly charged towards the two golden sword beasts. Jian Chen's will from the ultimate way of the sword was only useful against power and existences that were weaker than him, such as the godhood golden sword beasts. Even if they were god kings, he could kill them with a single thought. However, against beasts that were on the same level as him, the effectiveness of his will would be greatly reduced. Beasts as powerful as that had the ability to resist his will. Suddenly, the powers of the laws of the sword descended. Two powerful strands of sword chi condensed on Jian Chen's two sides before shooting out as streaks of light. They ripped through space like bolts of lightning, hurtling towards the two primordial realm golden sword beasts. The sword chi contained his comprehension of the ultimate way of the sword, so they were even more powerful and vicious than regular sword chi. Boom! With a deafening boom, the weaker golden sword beast trembled and was actually pushed back by Jian Chen's sword chi. The stronger, sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast emerged mostly unaffected. It locked onto Jian Chen's presence, stabbing towards his soul with cold killing intent. It did not slow down at all. Jian Chen's face was cold, and his gaze was piercing. He gently swept his finger across the space before him. Immediately, the space where his fingertips passed was ripped open, forming a long crack. It was like invisible sword chi was hidden in the tip of his finger, possessing extremely astonishing power. In an instant, Jian Chen's finger collided with the golden sword beast. At a closer glance, his finger remained 3 inches away from the golden sword beast. However, this tiny distance seemed like a gaping chasm that neither of them could cross. The colossal golden sword beast and the tip of Jian Chen's finger became locked in a stalemate, 3 inches apart from each other. Time seemed to come to a standstill at that moment. However, this stalemate only lasted for a single moment. The space between Jian Chen's finger and the golden sword beast suddenly began to twist and tremble. It was like a terrifying power was being charged up. In the end, an extremely terrifying storm of energy suddenly erupted in that tiny space with a deafening boom. Jian Chen was immediately blown away by the energy. His dark, long hair flailed about from the storm of energy. Immediately, he clad himself with light from the laws of the sword to block the incoming energy. The sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast was the same as Jian Chen, having been pushed into a constant retreat by the storm of energy. Jian Chen and the golden sword beast were basically perfectly matched in the clash this time. This sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast is truly astonishingly tough. It's almost on the level of low-quality god artifacts. I probably can't kill it without using the 9-star sword of heavenly ways or the profound sword chi, Jian Chen thought. Although his finger attack earlier did not seem special, it actually possessed his full strength. This was the most powerful attack he could unleash when only using his laws of the sword. However, he failed to injure the golden sword beast with that attack. At the same time, the golden sword beast failed to injure Jian Chen as well. What strength! He can clash with a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast and emerge unscathed, mid-infinite prime. This person's at the peak of mid-infinite prime at the very least, or maybe even late infinite prime. Everyone witnessed Jian Chen taking on the strike from the golden sword beast straight on, which immediately caused the primordial realm experts who served the Float Empire to gasp. Their gazes towards Jian Chen underwent a drastic change. Jian Chen's ultimate way of the sword was just too powerful. They were unable to tell Jian Chen's exact cultivation level from his laws of the sword, but his battle prowess alone was enough to stun them all. With such strength, he was the strongest expert on the spatial battleship aside from Yi Jianping. To another side, the eyes of the spectral elder who had remained hidden the entire time narrowed slightly as well. The battle prowess that Jian Chen displayed just now surprised him as well. At that moment, the hesitant spectral elder made up his mind. He decided to give up on assassinating Jian Chen. However, just when the spectral elder was about to leave, a great sense of danger suddenly descended, immediately making his face change. From behind him, a lightning-fast streak of light directly approached. The sword chi was extremely fast. The reflection of the dazzling light rapidly expanded in the spectral elder's pupils. The sharp presence had already locked onto him. The spectral elder immediately felt like he could not dodge the attack. There was nowhere where he could go now that the sword chi had locked onto him. He could only take it on forcefully. What surprised the spectral elder the most was that before the sword chi even arrived, it managed to influence the space around him, turning it into a domain of sword chi in a single moment. The invisible sword chi seemed to be omnipresent, filling every inch of the space around him. Even the origin energy in outer space had been forcefully transformed into invisible sword chi. It was as if he would immediately face the attacks of the sword chi with the slightest movement. What powerful sword intent! The spectral elder shivered inside as he became extremely stern. A black sword immediately appeared in his hand. As a black streak of light, it silently attacked the incoming sword chi. The black sword was a low-quality god artifact. As a primordial realm expert who belonged to the darkness clan that ranked third on the jade fluid plane, he obviously possessed a god artifact. However, the presence of the god artifact was completely concealed, and none of it leaked out. It seemed to have fused with the darkness completely, stabbing out silently. It was very difficult to discover. Boom! With a heavy rumble, the spectral elder's god artifact collided with the incoming sword chi. He was immediately forced out of the darkness, becoming completely exposed. The strand of sword chi was extremely powerful. Although the spectral elder wielded a god artifact, he was unable to stop himself from being blown backwards after the clash. You can actually sense my existence. The spectral elder did not try to hide anymore. He hovered in outer space and stared at Jian Chen in the distance sternly. He was in emotional turmoil. Not only did his secret technique hide him in space, but it even covered all his traces and presence as well. Even opponents with greater cultivation than him would struggle to discover his existence. However, his secret technique was completely useless before Jian Chen. Moreover, he had been exposed from so far away, which was absolutely shocking. Jian Chen looked at the spectral elder and said, "You've been observing me secretly for so long. Was it just to watch me fight the golden sword beasts?" The spectral elder was taken aback when he heard that. Disbelief filled his face, and he cried out, Why, you actually found my presence long ago." Jian Chen took a single step and crossed the distance, arriving before the spectral elder instantly. He said emotionlessly, "You tailed me suspiciously. It looks like your darkness clan wants to kill me." With that, Jian Chen's gaze gradually turned cold. "However, this is not the jade fluid plane. Your darkness clan can act as they wish on the jade fluid plane, but your darkness clan has no power in outer space." Light flickered on Jian Chen's hand. With that, he directly sent a palm strike towards the spectral elder. The palm strike contained his supreme sword intent. When he struck out, all the power in the surroundings seemed to become his, turning into omnipresent, invisible sword chi. The spectral elder's face changed drastically. As he faced Jian Chen's palm strike, he felt like he had completely sunken into a domain of sword chi. Endless sword chi surged towards him from all directions, forming a cage that locked him in. Suddenly, the spectral elder bellowed out, and the laws of darkness surged from his body. The god artifact in his hand shone with dark light as well. He stabbed towards Jian Chen as hard as he could. Third heavenly layer infinite prime. Even if you wield a god artifact, you aren't my opponent, Jian Chen said coldly. His ultimate way of the sword was just too powerful, allowing him to possess battle prowess no weaker than a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime, and this was before he even used the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. In his eyes, the spectral elder was obviously not an opponent at the same level. Bang! With a grunt, the spectral elder was blown away. He immediately paled as bright red blood sprayed out from his mouth. His body had become covered with dense sword slashes, covering him with wounds. He became completely bloody. The sword wounds came from the domain. It was created by the omnipresent sword chi. This person is actually so terrifying. That bastard Anya Jioyo has screwed me over, the spectral elder was extremely shocked. His gaze towards Jian Chen even bore a sliver of fear. He absolutely resented Anya Jioyo. Jian Chen was just too powerful, especially his terrifying way of the sword. Even when the spectral elder wielded a god artifact, he felt powerless inside. He could not fend off his opponent at all. After all, the god artifact could give him a heavenly layer's worth of strength at most, allowing him to possess the strength to fend off 4th heavenly layer infinite primes. Against Jian Chen, who was no weaker than the 6th heavenly layer, a very large difference still existed. This time will only be a small punishment. If this happens a second time, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Why don't you hurry up and go deal with the golden sword beasts? Jian Chen barked. He did not attack the spectral elder anymore. He turned around and charged towards the 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. The spectral elder, on the other hand, watched Jian Chen leave with mixed feelings. When he calmed down, he also charged towards a golden sword beast. He worked with one of the protectors of the spatial battleship against them. However, he maintained a relatively great distance from Jian Chen the entire time. Clearly, he still feared Jian Chen very much. Jian Chen became locked in combat with the 3rd heavenly layer and 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beasts. Temporarily, Jian Chen could not kill the stronger golden sword beast, so his main target became the weaker golden sword beast. He showed no mercy at all, unleashing his full strength in hopes of ending the battle fast. Obviously, it was not difficult for him to kill the golden sword beast with his current battle prowess. However, Jian Chen faced great obstruction under the interference of the 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. He was forced to spend some effort in repelling the stronger golden sword beast many times. Only then was he able to focus on the weaker golden sword beast. Finally, after around half an hour, he successfully killed the weaker golden sword beast, stowing the corpse away as quickly as he could. The corpses of these golden sword beasts would all be valuable. The stronger they were, the more precious they were. With the death of 3 primordial realm golden sword beasts, the pressure that the spatial battleship faced decreased drastically. Coupled with the addition of the spectral elder, the primordial realm experts from the Float Empire were gradually able to recover from their weaker position. However, even with that being the case, the remaining infinite primes apart from Jian Chen and Yi Jianpain struggled to gain the upper hand against the golden sword beasts. The defenses of the golden sword beasts were just too tough, and their battle prowess was impressive as well. Apart from experts with startling strength, most people would find it difficult to fend off golden sword beasts. Even with god artifacts, they would struggle to inflict heavy injuries. As a result, only 2 of the remaining 9 golden sword beasts suffered from some wounds. The 2 of them happened to be the leading golden sword beast fighting Yi Jianpain and the one who fought against the spectral elder and a member of the Float Empire. Jian Chen frowned when he saw how he was locked in combat against the 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. It was worth more than the 3rd heavenly layer golden sword beast, at least 2 times more, so he really wanted to kill it. However, he could not use the 9-star sword of heavenly ways or the profound sword chi. They were basically symbolic of his identity, so he was certain that the primordial realm experts would immediately recognize him once he used them. If he did not use them, the strength from his laws of the sword and chaotic body were not enough to kill the golden sword beast. At this moment, dazzling light suddenly appeared. Formations began to fuse together on the spatial battleship, forming a colossal hexagram. Terrifying energy, enough to send chills down Jian Chen's spine, charged up within the hexagram. Jian Chen could clearly sense that over 80% of the power in the entire spatial battleship had surged into the hexagram like raging rivers. As a result, the energy within the hexagram grew more and more powerful. It shone like the sun, illuminating outer space. No longer under attack by primordial realm space beasts, the spatial battleship finally had enough power to deal out its most powerful attack. This is the light of destruction. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. The energy gathering in the hexagram was alarming to him. The might of the strike would definitely be on the level of a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime or even beyond that. The light of destruction is a terrifying killing formation created from the fusion of many formations. It's the ultimate trump card of this spatial battleship, and its strongest attack when journeying through outer space. It requires a tremendous amount of resources each time it's used, and it is never used unless absolutely necessary. The information regarding the hexagram quickly flashed through Jian Chen's head. At this moment, the power within the hexagram finished charging up. A blinding stream of light suddenly shot out. The dark outer space was dyed white. Countless stars paled in comparison. It was as if the stream of light from the hexagram had become the only existence in the world. Boom! With a deafening sound, terrifying storms of energy swept out. The beam of light from the hexagram struck the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast with power that was chilling to all infinite primes. Immediately, slashes appeared on the golden sword beast. Golden blood oozed out and scattered in outer space. The light of destruction was just too powerful. It had surpassed the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime and was enough to rival the strike of a chaotic prime. The attack alone had heavily injured the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. Heaven sealing 9 swords, in trap. At this moment, Jian Pain called out, and 9 swords shot out from him. They fell into a formation and trapped the golden sword beast. Afterwards, his sword danced, and he completely displayed his strength as a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. Powerful strands of sword chi landed on the remaining 8 golden sword beasts. Every single strand of sword chi was extremely powerful. They tore through space and ripped open gashes. The golden sword beast that Jian Chen struggled to kill immediately suffered heavy injuries from one of Jian Pain's sword chi. Golden blood spurted out constantly as it was blown far away. The other primordial realm golden sword beasts were heavily injured by Jian Pain's sword chi as well, knocked far away. All the primordial realm experts from the Float Empire roused their battle spirit, prepared to pursue their opponents. Don't keep fighting. Everyone board the spatial battleship, quick. At this moment, Jian Pain's voice rang out. He did not kill the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. Instead, he approached the spatial battleship. He swung his sword and sent out a few strands of sword chi, killing off the godhood golden sword beasts around the ship. With that, the infinite primes returned to the ship without any hesitation at all. However, the spatial battleship had already been surrounded by golden sword beasts. Several 100,000 of them or even 1,000,000 of them formed a huge ball that firmly encircled the entire ship. If the infinite primes wanted to return, they obviously had to kill these golden sword beasts and clear a path. Very soon, all the infinite primes killed their way back onto the spatial battleship. With their return, the intense battles that had erupted on the spatial battleship ended instantly. All of the golden sword beasts that had made it onto the ship were killed by them. At this moment, Jian Pain looked at Jian Chen and said sternly, "Golden sword beasts form very large herds. What we've encountered right now should only be a tiny swarm. The death of 3 primordial realm golden sword beasts will definitely alarm even more powerful members of their herd, so we can't remain here. We need to leave immediately. Sir, please clear a path. Clearly, Jian Pain was referring to Jian Chen's method of killing all those golden sword beasts in a single moment. The spatial battleship was surrounded by a dense layer of golden sword beasts. As soon as they cleared a path, it would be filled up with even more golden sword beasts. The slaughter would never end. There would obviously be no difficulty for the infinite primes to leave alone, but they would clearly be in trouble if they wanted to make something as colossal as the spatial battleship break free. The spatial battleship was just too large, so the path they needed to clear out would obviously be even larger. None of them possessed a method to kill swarms of golden sword beasts like what Jian Chen could do. Jian Chen obviously understood what Jian Pain was referring to. He glanced past the surroundings and nodded. In the next moment, he arrived at the stern of the spatial battleship alone, suddenly expanding his supreme will from the ultimate way of the sword. Immediately, Jian Chen's supreme will engulfed the entire region forcefully. At that moment, he seemed to have become the ruler of the world, where everything was under his control as long as his will enveloped it. At the same time, all the primordial realm experts on the spatial battleship felt like a huge change had occurred to the world around them, seemingly becoming rather foreign. The weaker godhood cultivators also sensed in shock that they seemed to encounter a mysterious and great obstruction in their usage of laws. As a result, they were unable to use them as freely as before. It was as if the laws they comprehended had completely vanished from this space. That was not all of it. Even the origin energy was beyond their grasp. They were unable to absorb any of it. Jian Chen's supreme will was useless against primordial realm experts, but godhood cultivators were unable to put up any resistance before it at all. Bang! 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 With a series of explosions, all the godhood golden sword beasts within a range of 100,000 kilometers died. The several tens of thousand golden sword beasts in the domain were instantly killed off. Not a single one remained alive. Their remains and blood drifted through space. Immediately, a huge, gaping hole appeared in the dense swarm of golden sword beasts around the spatial battleship. What is this technique? It's so powerful, all the primordial realm experts gasped in extreme shock at this sight. Even though it was their second time seeing this, they were still unable to hide their shock. As for the god kings who had gathered on the deck as well, they were all stunned and felt great astoundment. Full speed ahead. Charge out of here. Jian Pain called out from the deck. His voice reached the interior of the spatial battleship, reaching the ears of the cultivators who were responsible for controlling the spatial battleship. Immediately, the spatial battleship shook and activated all of its movements formations to set off. Without the obstruction of the golden sword beasts, the spatial battleship charged out smoothly as a streak of light. Very soon, it charged out of the encirclement and vanished into the depths of space. Immediately, the region of space there settled down despite the earlier fighting. Having lost their target, the remaining godhood golden sword beasts wandered around aimlessly, waiting for orders from their leader. Boom! Before long, a great rumble suddenly rang out, and Jian Pain's formation shattered. The 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast broke free. Its colossal, golden body shook in outer space as it produced furious mental pulses. Sensing the rage of their leader, all the golden sword beasts stopped moving. Their sword-shaped bodies trembled gently as if they were fearful. At this moment, a figure shot over from the sea of stars with lightning speed. He moved so fast that he was basically teleporting. Even 9th heavenly layer infinite primes would not be able to sense his traces as he traveled. Very soon, the figure stopped among the golden sword beast herd. He did not disguise himself at all. Instead, he hovered where the spatial battleship had paused earlier in a composed manner. He directly ignored the golden sword beasts in his surroundings. He was the elder of mountains and seas who had come all the way from the desolate plain in pursuit. The elder of mountains and seas hovered in the air with his eyes closed. It was like he was sensing for something. A while later, he slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the remains of the golden sword beasts drifting through the surroundings, and his eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "Jian Chen has stayed here for a while. I can tell that he took part in the battle that erupted earlier. I'm getting closer and closer to Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen seems to be on a spatial battleship. Spatial battleships are fast, but how can they be faster than me? Spatial battleships were only as fast as chaotic primes as they moved through outer space. The elder of mountains and seas was a grand prime, so he moved much faster than chaotic primes." At this moment, a golden streak of light suddenly stabbed towards the elder of mountains and seas. The enraged ninth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast had discovered the elder of mountains and seas. Without much thought, it immediately killed towards the elder of mountains and seas. However, the elder of mountains and seas did not even glance at it. He only raised his hand leisurely, and by pinching 2 fingers gently, he effortlessly gripped the golden sword beast. Afterwards, the elder of mountains and seas pinched his fingers slightly. With a crisp crack, the golden sword beast that had even forced the spatial battleship to use its trump card, the light of destruction, immediately crumbled. Its colossal body turned into countless fragments that scattered through the surroundings. At the same time, its consciousness dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the golden sword beast was dead. It had been killed with a simple gesture from the elder of mountains and seas. Even a mere 9th heavenly layer infinite prime dares to attack me. Space beasts really are space beasts after all, a bunch of creatures with low intellect. The elder of mountains and seas sneered scornfully. At this moment, another dazzling streak of light shot over from the depths of space. It charged into the battlefield with a blanketing presence. It was another golden sword beast, but it was much smaller than the primordial realm ones. It was only a few hundred meters long. However, its presence and the pulses of energy it gave off had completely exceeded the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime. There's an emperor-level existence, equivalent to chaotic primes, among this herd of golden sword beasts, muttered the elder of mountains and seas to himself as he paid attention to the golden streak of light. He still did not take it seriously. The chaotic prime golden sword beast seemed to know that its 9th heavenly layer clansmen had been killed, so it charged towards the elder of mountains and seas aggressively. It gave off astonishing killing intent. "Humph, you have no regard for your life," said the elder of mountains and seas with a sneer. He swung his arm, and the surroundings immediately began to dim. The power of laws surged over like an ocean, blasting the chaotic prime golden sword beast far away. "Don't disturb me, or I'll kill you too." The elder of mountains and seas snorted coldly before closing his eyes and using his innate ability to sense Jian Chen's position. His innate ability could only sense Jian Chen's position, not his exact location. As a result, he had to stop and sense Jian Chen's position every once in a while to avoid trailing off in the wrong direction. After suffering once, the chaotic prime golden sword beast seemed to understand the elder of mountains and seas' strength. It no longer charged recklessly. Instead, it produced a sharp mental pulse that passed through the space and reached the depths of the starry sea. The elder of mountains of seas was surprised inside. He immediately opened his eyes and became rather stern. He growled and said, "You're actually asking for help. Don't tell me the strongest in this golden sword beast herd isn't an emperor equivalent to chaotic primes but a sovereign-level existence equivalent to grand primes?" As if confirming the elder of mountains of seas' words, the space before him suddenly ripped open and dazzling light immediately poured out. A golden sword only 10 meters long appeared from the crack with blinding light, shooting towards the elder of mountains and seas with the power to kill. A sovereign-level existence among golden sword beasts. The elder of mountains and seas' face changed, and he cried out. He finally became stern. The golden sword beast sovereign was equivalent to grand primes. It was the one of the most powerful existence that stood at the apex of outer space. The elder of mountains and seas had never expected this small herd of golden sword beasts he encountered here would have given birth to a sovereign-level existence. Afterwards, deafening booms rang out. The elder of mountains and seas engaged in an intense battle against the golden sword beast sovereign, causing space to collapse and the sea of stars to tremble. In the distance, the spatial battleship that Jian Chen rode had already unleashed its full speed. Like a ghost, it shot through space silently. There were many cultivators on the deck of the spatial battleship, who were either cleaning up the blood or gathering the corpses gloomily or sorrowfully. Many cultivators had died during the battle against the golden sword beasts. There were many god kings among them. If the primordial realm experts had not returned relatively soon, probably even more cultivators would have died. These cultivators were all people without significant backgrounds. People who did remained within the cabins and did not take part in the battle. Anya Joyo of the Darkness clan happened to be one of them. Spectral Elder, you're actually injured. At this moment, Anya Joyo stared at the Spectral Elder in surprise. Currently, he was inside the luxurious cabin occupied by the Darkness clan. He cried out. The light in his eyes flickered, and he asked, "Is the person auctioning the god artifact dead?" The Spectral Elder could not help but think back to the scene of despair when he faced Jian Chen now that Anya Joyo had mentioned him. He immediately became angered, and his impression of Anya Joyo worsened. We can't afford to provoke that person. Joyo, it's best if you don't offend him. You must know that although our Darkness clan is feared by all on the Jade Fluid Plane, our clan is nothing in respect to the entire Saints world. There are far too many existences that can devastate our clan. I don't wish to see your harassment create a great enemy for our Darkness clan, the Spectral Elder said coldly. After his battle in outer space, his fear of Jian Chen had become embedded in his heart. With his strength, even if it were impossible for him to defeat a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime like Yi Jian Pain, he was still confident about fleeing. After all, it would be difficult for even an expert like Yi Jian Pain to see through the hiding techniques of their Darkness clan. However, before Jian Chen, he truly felt like he was unable to hide at all. He did not know how Jian Chen had managed to see through his concealing techniques. His laws of darkness and the ancient secret techniques of their Darkness clan were completely useless before Jian Chen. Moreover, Jian Chen's method of killing countless godhood golden sword beasts with a single thought had filled the Spectral Elder with even more shock. It led to suspicions about Jian Chen's identity. He could not be a simple person if he possessed such astonishing battle prowess and such terrifying techniques. The Spectral Elder struggled to imagine just how powerful the organization behind Jian Chen was. Anya Joyo frowned and asked grimly, "Is this person really that powerful? Where even you, the Spectral Elder, are not his opponent." The Spectral Elder sighed, and lingering fear appeared in his ordinary eyes. He said, "You might not believe me, but if it weren't for his mercy and the fact that he didn't want to kill me, I probably wouldn't be alive right now. The person who's auctioning the god artifact has the strength of a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime at the very least or even more, what?" Anya Joyo's face changed drastically. Meanwhile, the primordial realm experts who served the Float Empire had all gathered on the top floor of the spatial battleship under Yi Jian Pain's lead. This time, they were not sitting in the air. Instead, they had taken out a white jade table and invited Jian Chen up, receiving him with aged wine. The strength that Jian Chen displayed during the fight against the golden sword beasts had earned their respect. His services made them admire him. Fa Yun, who had tested Jian Chen several days ago, took the initiative to say a toast, apologizing to Jian Chen for his past brashness. Jian Chen waved his hand and did not mind it. It had only been a small test from Fa Yun earlier. He did not do anything overboard, so Jian Chen did not care about what had happened. Fellow Yang Yutian's way of the sword is so powerful that it's rarely seen. I'm afraid your master must be a renowned, supreme expert in the saint's world, said Yi Jianping. His eyes shone brightly with sword intent. Everyone on the desolate plain knew the name of Chang Yang already, so Jian Chen changed his name to Yang Yutian after he left the desolate plain. Jian Chen knew that Yi Jianping was investigating his background. He immediately smiled mysteriously and replied, "My master is indeed a renowned, supreme expert of the saint's world. There are not a lot of people who don't know about him. However, he especially warned me to not admit that I'm his disciple or mention my background unless I become a grand prime." Jian Chen's words contained some lies and truth. The master he referred to was obviously one of the 5 grand exalts of the immortals world, the old master of the twin swords. His words towards the end were all lies. However, he indeed could not disclose his true identity before he was powerful enough to fend off grand primes. However, when they heard that, the primordial realm experts immediately became shocked. They were quite frightened. Grand primes were figures on the level of ancestors in their float empire. They were terrifying people who could make the entire jade fluid plane tremor from a simple gesture. However, this supreme realm of cultivation had become only the minimum requirement for this fellow called Yang Yutian to mention his master's name. This astounded Yi Jianping and the others. They struggled to imagine just how terrifying and proud his master was. That short sentence completely severed Yi Jianping's intentions of investigating Jian Chen. "Oh right, I heard that an extremely grand celebration is going to be held on the Star Brilliance Plain soon. Many peak clans on the Jade Fluid Plain are hurrying over for this celebration, and they seem to be bearing rich gifts as well. May I ask what is happening on the Star Brilliance Plain?" Jian Chen took the opportunity to ask this question. He was about to land on the Star Brilliance Plain, so he needed to have some prior knowledge about it. "You actually don't know about something so important?" Fa Yun looked at Jian Chen in surprise before explaining patiently and in great detail, the supreme figure of the Star Brilliance Plain, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, suddenly accepted a foster son 1,000 years ago. As the 9 Brilliant Star Lord never had any children or partners, his foster son naturally became the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's only son. He's known as the Young Star Lord by everyone. In a few years' time, it will be the Young Star Lord's 1,000-year birthday. As a result, many peak organizations across the Saints' world have arranged for their juniors to cross through the distant outer space and arrive on the Star Brilliance Plain to celebrate the Young Star Lord's 1,000th birthday. Just the 1,000-year birthday celebration of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's foster son has made so many peak organizations across the Saints' world frantically offer up gifts. It looks like the 9 Brilliant Star Lord is definitely a renowned figure who stands at the apex of the Saints' world. Sigh, it's all my master's fault for not telling me about the important and powerful people in the Saints' world, so I didn't even know who the 9 Brilliant Star Lord is, Jian Chen said with a sigh. Yi Jianping chuckled when he heard that and said, "The 9 Brilliant Star Lord is one of the supreme experts who stand at the apex of the Saints' world. He's so powerful that he's a 9th heavenly layer Grand Prime, an existence only second to Grand Exalts." Yi Jianping continued, "Moreover, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord has another dazzling identity, and that's a Grand Exalt's disciple. He's one of the 3 disciples of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt." What? The 9 Brilliant Star Lord is actually a Grand Exalt's disciple, and that Grand Exalt is the Blood Tier Grand Exalt? Jian Chen's heart shuddered. Such a person would definitely be one of the most dazzling figures in the Saints' world as a Grand Exalt's disciple. Moreover, Jian Chen had never expected him to be a disciple of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. Back on the desolate plain, he had faced the Blood Tier Grand Exalt in person. He felt like there was nothing he could hide before a Grand Exalt, which filled Jian Chen with chills. Grand Exalts were simply too powerful. They could not be compared to the Grand Primes who chased him around the desolate plain. Even though Jian Chen had reached the 14th layer of the chaotic body, and his strength had increased drastically, he had a strong premonition that it would be exactly the same if he faced a Grand Exalt again. He would not even be able to move a finger. As soon as he thought of the blood-tier Grand Exalt who appeared back then, Jian Chen could not help but feel uncertain from the bottom of his heart. He was certain that the blood-tier Grand Exalt had discovered the twin swords on him. Logically speaking, Grand Exalts would never spare him if his identity was revealed. After all, the twin swords had killed many experts of the Saints' world in the hands of their previous master. However, in reality, the blood-tier Grand Exalt did not make anything difficult for him. He did not even say anything, leaving mysteriously. He even left the corpse of the strongest existence among the 3 dark gold ape kings of the ancient great apes behind. This filled Jian Chen with uncertainty. "Fellow Yang Yutian," said Fa Yun. He looked at Jian Chen before pausing in hesitance. Jian Chen dismissed his thoughts and put the matter of the blood-tier Grand Exalt aside. He glanced at Fa Yun and smiled. He asked, "Fa Yun, do you want to buy the God artifact?" Fa Yun nodded. He desired it, but Jian Chen's reserve price was just too high. It was 5,000 5-colored divine crystals. He could not afford such a price no matter what. Even if he borrowed from his companions of the Float Empire, he would struggle to gather it. After a while of thought, Jian Chen said, "Fa Yun, if you want the God artifact, wait until the auction ends." Jian Chen knew the value of 5-colored divine crystals. It was simply too unrealistic for a regular infinite prime without any special background to take out 5,000 of them suddenly. He planned on selling it to Fa Yun privately for a lower price after the auction, as it was unlikely for it to be sold. Although he was uncertain about the true value of a low-quality God artifact, he did not mind it even if he was on the short end of the deal. He only cared about gathering enough 5-colored divine crystals soon. The 9 brilliant Star Lord dwelled on the Star Brilliance plane, and he had ties with the blood-tier Grand Exalt. As such, Jian Chen did not want to remain on the Star Brilliance plane for very long. Afterwards, Jian Chen conversed with the primordial realm experts a little more before leaving. The interrupted auction on the spatial battleship was about to continue. Soon after Jian Chen's departure, the spectral elder who sat on a jade bed to heal within the spatial battleship suddenly opened his eyes. A strand of extremely obscure senses of the soul came down from the top floor of the spatial battleship, passing on a message to the spectral elder. The spectral elder's face immediately changed drastically when he received the message. He stood up in a hurry and went to find Anya Joyo. "There's horrible news. One of the protectors of the Float Empire had told me that the person auctioning the God artifact is called Yang Yutian. His background is extremely terrifying. It said that none of the organizations on our Jade Fluid plane can afford to offend the person behind him," said the spectral elder grimly. "What? Are you certain?" Anya Joyo was startled as well when he heard that. Although he was arrogant and abusive, that was only before people with backgrounds weaker than him. He would not dare to act like that once he encountered people he could not afford to provoke. He would shy away from them. The spectral elder nodded with absolute certainty. He had already guessed that Jian Chen's background was astonishingly great, and the news from the protectors of the spatial battleship confirmed his guess. He no longer doubted it at all. He had clearly witnessed Jian Chen's extraordinariness through both his astonishing battle prowess and his secret technique that had killed so many golden sword beasts in a split second. Neither aspect were things that regular infinite primes could possess. "We need to find a way to recover the situation." "We can still make it," muttered the spectral elder quietly. He had already come up with an idea. Before long, the auction interrupted by the golden sword beasts finally started up again. It continued from the sale that had not been completed before. Very soon, the auction center was filled with cultivators again. Even though there were fewer people compared to before, it was still packed. The low-quality god artifact that Jian Chen wanted to auction off was placed on the display podium again. Our Darkness clan will bid 6,000 five-colored divine crystals. However, as soon as the god artifact appeared this time, and before the host could say anything, an old voice rang out from the viewing box of the Darkness clan. The voice came from the spectral elder. He had bid Jian Chen's reserve price right from the start, and he even added 1,000 more five-colored divine crystals. The auction center immediately fell silent. At that moment, all the cultivators gathered there looked at the viewing box of the Darkness clan. They were extremely stunned. Previously, the Darkness clan had acted unruly and forceful. They secretly controlled the auction and wanted to buy the god artifact for the price of 10 five-colored divine crystals. Everyone had witnessed that before. However, the Darkness clan had suddenly changed their attitude, bidding 6,000 five-colored divine crystals right from the start. It was even higher than the reserve price of the god artifact. Such a contrasting move confused all the cultivators in the auction center. This act did not match up to the behavior of the Darkness clan at all. Jian Chen, who also sat in a viewing box, was slightly surprised as well once he heard the Darkness clan's bid. He was already ready to sell the god artifact to Fa Yun for a lower price once it was passed over in the auction. He had never thought the Darkness clan would actually do this. It had caught him by surprise. You've probably frightened the primordial realm expert of the Darkness clan. He's purposefully expressing his goodwill now, said Kaya. She smiled gently as she sat before Jian Chen. Jian Chen nodded with a smile and said, "This is fine as well. With these five-colored divine crystals, there's no need for us to linger on the Star Brilliance place at all. We can directly take the teleportation formation there and go to the Prosper Plane." In the end, Jian Chen's low-quality god artifact was purchased by the Darkness clan for 6,000 five-colored divine crystals. As soon as the auction ended, all the people that belonged to peak organizations on the spatial battleship gathered in the viewing box of the Darkness clan, offering up space ring after space ring. Moreover, 2 of the 6 people who served the Float Empire had come as well, offering up a space ring each. It was impossible for the Spectral Elder or Anya Jioyo to take out 6,000 five-colored divine crystals. For the sake of gathering this sum, the Spectral Elder had personally taken action, using the name of the Darkness clan to borrow from basically the entire spatial battleship. He only managed to gather this amount using such a method. Chapter 24:10, Danger. 1. The low-quality god artifact had been purchased by the people of the Darkness clan for 6,000 five-colored divine crystals. This matter surprised everyone. Doubt towards the person who had auctioned off the god artifact followed. Many peak clans from the Jade Fluid Plane were gathered on the spatial battleship. Although many of them did not know about the battle prowess Jian Chen had demonstrated in his battle against the Golden Sword beasts, they were not dim. All of them managed to get an inkling about very important information from the Darkness clan's response. The background of the person who sold the god artifact was so great that even the Darkness clan that ranked 3rd on the Jade Fluid Plane did not dare to offend him. This conclusion immediately unsettled many people from peak organizations. They became uneasy. Quite a few of them had threatened Jian Chen before. However, now that Jian Chen had made the Darkness clan show so much fear, they did not dare to offend him. These people felt like they had caused a huge problem. Fa Yun was troubled on the top floor of the spatial battleship. His face was filled with undisguised dejection. Originally, Jian Chen had told him he would sell the god artifact to him for a low price once it was passed on during the auction. He had been excited about the matter ever since. After all, he still did not have a god artifact despite being a primordial realm expert. Now that he had come across one after so much difficulty, his blood boiled. Moreover, it was a large sword that suited him the most. He was delighted. A god artifact could increase his battle prowess drastically, making him even more powerful. It would elevate his status among the people who served the Float Empire. However, he had not expected the Darkness clan to buy the god artifact for a price of 6,000 five-colored divine crystals to express their goodwill towards Jian Chen. As a result, he lost his chance of obtaining the god artifact. It irritated him. Fa Yen, don't be glum. You serve the Float Empire. The Float Empire does not lack god artifacts. Once you accrue enough service for the Float Empire, you'll be able to redeem a god artifact that suits you perfectly. Another primordial realm expert from the Float Empire comforted Fa Yun. Fa Yun sighed softly. He had already considered redeeming a god artifact, but it would take several thousand years at the very least. He had to watch over spatial battleships the entire time, taking up the role of the spatial battleship's protector. He would clash with various space beasts in outer space often, so who knew when he would die. Naturally, it was better if he could get his hands on a god artifact sooner, as the more powerful he was, the longer he would be able to survive. Sirs, Senior Yang Yutian has arrived. A guard's voice rang out outside. Let him in, said one of the primordial realm experts immediately. Jian Chen's status in the eyes of these primordial realm experts differed drastically from before. There were even 2 or 3 of them who showed undisguised respect as well as some intent to fawn over him. Very soon, Jian Chen walked in. The white-robed Kaya followed him. The primordial realm experts of the Float Empire immediately stood up to welcome him. None of them dared to waste any time. Even the strongest expert of the spatial battleship, Jian Pain, had hurried over. Fa Yun, although I wasn't expecting the Darkness clan to buy the god artifact, don't worry. I have more god artifacts. Jian Chen cut to the chase after exchanging pleasantries, taking out another god artifact from his space ring. The weapon was also a low-quality god artifact, but it was not a large sword. It was a spear. Jian Chen had obtained all of these god artifacts from the Neptunian Divine Palace. The hearts of the primordial realm experts leapt when they saw Jian Chen casually take out another god artifact. He had too many of them. However, as soon as they considered Jian Chen's background, it all made sense. Fa Yun immediately burned with interest when he saw that Jian Chen still had god artifacts. However, when he saw that the weapon was not a large sword that suited him, he immediately became disappointed, like a deflated balloon. He was not skilled with the spear. Even if he possessed this god artifact, he would not be able to unleash his strength to the fullest. Jian Chen held the spear and said to Fa Yun, this god artifact isn't a large sword, but its quality is on the same level as the other one. You can exchange this god artifact with the people of the Darkness clan. Fa Yun's eyes lit up when he heard that. He asked eagerly, fellow Yang Yutian, may I ask how much you plan on selling this god artifact for? Afterwards, Jian Chen and Fa Yun negotiated a price. In the end, Jian Chen decided to sell the spear to Fa Yun for 3,000 five-colored divine crystals. Fa Yun only managed to gather 3,000 five-colored divine crystals by borrowing over 2,000 of them from his 5 companions. He purchased it from Jian Chen. Jian Chen made 9,000 five-colored divine crystals from 2 low-quality god artifacts. The auction center, due to what happened earlier, did not take any commission from Jian Chen. Jian Chen took the 9,000 five-colored divine crystals and returned to his cabin with Kaya. He no longer stayed at the high-class cabin. Instead, he moved to a luxurious cabin that the primordial realm experts of the Float Empire provided to him for free. Jian Chen, 6,000 five-colored divine crystals are already enough for us to take the teleportation formation to the Prosper Plane. Why did you sell the second god artifact? God artifacts are treasures that people can only wish for, Kaya asked out of uncertainty as soon as they returned to their cabin. It's for my sister. If my sister wants to recover her cultivation, she requires an extremely tremendous amount of cultivation resources. Even if Protector Shui breaks through to the primordial realm, she won't be able to gather up a lot in a short amount of time. I obviously have to find ways to prepare some for my sister now that I have the ability. These god artifacts are useless weapons in my hands. I would much rather turn them into cultivation resources so that my sister can recover her cultivation as soon as possible. If it weren't for the measly number of primordial realm experts on this spatial battleship and that they can't take out so many 5-colored divine crystals, I would have sold all the god artifacts on me, said Jian Chen. He had already learned from Protector Shui that his sister, Chanyang Mingyue, had some past grievances with the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. As such, he did not dare to ask their First Majesty, Exin, to help out his sister once he arrived on the Prosper Plain to return the Inata Tower. He did not even dare to disclose anything about his sister to the First Majesty. After all, he did not know the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng. He was afraid the First Majesty would add insult to injury once she learnt about his sister's situation and harm her. As a result, he could only rely on himself if he wanted to help his sister recover as quickly as possible. There are a few more years before the spatial battleship arrives on the Star Brilliance Plain. As soon as we arrive, we'll leave through a teleportation formation and go to the Prosper Plain, thought Jian Chen. He had already accumulated enough 5-colored divine crystals to go to the Prosper Plain through a teleportation formation with the sale of the 2 low-quality god artifacts. However, at this moment, a great sense of danger suddenly sprang up in Jian Chen's heart, immediately making him uneasy. Oh no, we're probably in trouble, Jian Chen's heart leapt as he became extremely stern. He had no idea where the sense of danger came from, but he deeply understood that his senses seemed to have become extraordinarily powerful after a strand of chaotic force fused with his soul. At this moment, he felt an ill foreboding. A great danger was definitely approaching. Moreover, the danger would be so great that it would be very difficult for him to make it out alive despite his current level of cultivation. Chapter 24:11, Danger, 2, Kaya, we can't remain on this spatial battleship. We must leave immediately. Jian Chen made a decision on the spot. He made his way out with Kaya, finding the experts from the Float Empire once again. What did you say, fellow Yang Yutian? You want to leave the spatial battleship right now? One of them was immediately surprised when he learnt of Jian Chen's intentions. Although Infinite Prime's experts could travel through outer space, it was definitely not as safe as remaining on a spatial battleship. Moreover, the spatial battleship was much faster than Infinite Prime's. It was impossible for experts below Chaotic Prime to outspeed the ship. They were just about to reach the Star Brilliance Plain, yet Jian Chen said he wanted to leave. This confused the experts of the Float Empire. I have something I must attend to. I won't be going to the Star Brilliance Plain, Jian Chen said without going into too much detail. Formations enveloped the spatial battleship as it traveled, sealing up the entire ship. If he wanted to leave, he needed the protectors to stop the ship and open the formations. If that's the case, take care. The protector did not say much. He immediately ordered the ship to be stopped and the formations to be opened, letting Jian Chen and Kaya leave. If someone else requested this, he would have never agreed, as not only would they waste quite a lot of time if the ship was stopped, but they would also have to waste a sizable amount of energy to accelerate once again. However, Jian Chen's status was extraordinary in the hearts of the protectors. Coupled with his strength, they naturally did not dare to decline his request. Jian Chen and Kaya left the spatial battleship. After that, Jian Chen took out a smaller spaceship from his space ring. They quickly flew off in another direction, vanishing very soon. Half a day after Jian Chen and Kaya's departure, the huge spatial battleship suddenly shook violently. The space around the ship seemed to have suddenly condensed from a tremendous pressure. It was as if the ship was moving through mud. It faced great resistance, moving slower and slower before coming to a grinding halt in the end. In the next moment, a blue ocean appeared in the surroundings. It seemed like a tremendous ocean. Seawater churned and waves collided within it. The ocean had abruptly appeared in such a strange fashion in outer space, enveloping the spatial battleship. The spatial battleship was like a tiny, lone boat in the strange ocean. It seemed insignificant. In just a single moment, it was swallowed by the blue ocean, completely vanishing. From afar, it was possible to see that the blue ocean had formed a giant sphere. It wrapped around the spatial battleship completely. The ocean was not regular seawater. Instead, it had been condensed from terrifying energy and the power of laws. It possessed a tremendous pressure. The pressure alone was enough to make the protective formations around the spatial battleship to shake violently, causing them to rapidly disperse. The 6 primordial realm experts who served the Float Empire immediately sensed the situation outside on the highest floor of the spatial battleship. All of their faces changed drastically, becoming filled with fright and shock. Even Jian Pain lost his usual composure, becoming extremely stern. "We're from the Float Empire of the Jade Fluid Plane. Please show mercy, Senior." Jian Pain and his 5 companions cried out and arrived on the deck as quickly as they could. "We're from the Darkness Clan of the Jade Fluid Plane. The most favored son of our patriarch, young Master Anya Joyo, is on this spatial battleship. Senior, please show mercy." The spectral elder also charged over as quickly as he could, immediately stating his identity. "We're from the Myriad Water Estate of the Jade Fluid Plane." At the same time, all the peak clans on the spatial battleship received the message from Jian Pain and the others, so they hurried to the deck and stated their origins. Soon, all the primordial realm experts as the representatives of the various peak organizations had gathered on the deck. They all stared at the blue ocean around the spatial battleship and paled. They could clearly sense a terrifying pressure enough to make the depths of their souls shake from the ocean. A figure appeared from the blue ocean. He stood with his arms behind his back, and he completely fused with the colossal ocean. He was a hook-nosed old man with short hair. He looked at the spatial battleship below him, and undisguised excitement filled his eyes. He was the Elder of Mountains and Seas. However, the Elder of Mountains and Seas seemed rather haggard. It was like he was not at his peak condition and was injured instead. Clearly, the Elder of Mountains and Seas had been injured in his battle against the Golden Sword Beast Sovereign. Jian Chen, I've finally caught up with you. As long as I capture you and get the Inata Tower from you, it'll be worth it even if I ended up getting injured by the Golden Sword Beast, thought the Elder of Mountains and Seas. Thanks to his innate ability, he had caught up with the spatial battleship. He was confident that Jian Chen was on the ship. "Senior, we're going to the Star Brilliance Plane to celebrate the young Star Lord's birthday. If you kill us here, not only will it be a slap to the young Star Lord's face, but you'll put the young Star Lord's birthday celebration in jeopardy as well," someone called out from the spatial battleship. They hoped the Elder of Mountains and Seas would retreat after knowing what he was dealing with. Offending the young Star Lord was basically offending the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Who was the 9 Brilliant Star Lord? Not only was he a disciple of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt, but his personal cultivation was close to perfection as well. He had become a 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Prime many years ago, making him one of the most powerful experts below Grand Exalt. Don't worry. I have no interest in you. I've come for someone else, sniggered the Elder of Mountains and Seas. May I ask who Senior is looking for? We'll hand them over immediately, said one of the protectors of the Float Empire. The Elder of Mountains and Seas shook his head and smiled strangely. You really won't be able to find this person. Only when I personally take action will I be able to pick him out from the crowd. With that, the Elder of Mountains and Seas closed his eyes and used his innate ability again, sensing for Jian Chen's position. There were simply too many cultivators on the spatial battleship, and Jian Chen had the disguise from a treasure. As a result, the Elder of Mountains and Seas was unable to tell who was Jian Chen from the crowd either. He could only use his innate ability. However, his face changed slightly very soon. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked in another direction. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space and see the depths of the cosmos. What a scheming brat. He's actually not on this ship. But since you've already caught my eye, you're done for. The Elder of Mountains and Seas gritted his teeth. He did not remain where he was for a second longer, vanishing in a single moment. With his departure, the endless ocean that surrounded the spatial battleship disappeared as well. The terrifying pressure was gone in a single moment. All the cultivators on the deck became relieved now that the spatial battleship had broken free. They felt like they had just survived a great danger. Grand Prime. The senior earlier was a Grand Prime, said Jian Pain grimly as he stared in the direction that the Elder of Mountains and Seas had vanished. Grand Prime? But who was he looking for? It looked like he definitely came with ill intentions, said the spectral Elder of the Darkness clan grimly. The direction that he has left in S seems to be the same as fellow Yang Yutian's. At this moment, Fa Yun cried out. Chapter 24:12, Pursuit in Outer Space. Jian Pain and the other primordial realm experts from the Float Empire looked over as well. Their eyes narrowed slightly. They had not been paying much attention earlier, but now that Fa Yun had brought it up, they realized that the Elder of Mountains and Seas had really traveled off in the same direction as Yang Yutian, who had a mysterious background. At that moment, all the primordial realm experts on the spatial battleship thought of the same time. That terrifying Grand Prime was chasing Yang Yutian. Moreover, he did not seem to have good intentions. He was cold. This chase was very likely to be chasing to kill. This has nothing to do with us. Let's all go back and start up the battleship so that we can continue on our way. At this moment, Jian Pain swung his hand and left. With his departure, the primordial realm experts from the Float Empire and the people of various peak organizations gathered on the deck returned to the cabins. Yang Yutian, I wish you luck. Fa Yun roughly gazed in the direction that Jian Chen had left in. After a soft prayer, he left the deck as well. Jian Chen had sold a god artifact to him for a lower price, and Fa Yun had used this god artifact to successfully exchange for the two-handed sword in the Darkness clan's possession. As a result, he finally owned a low-quality god artifact that suited him. He felt some gratitude towards Jian Chen. Now, it was extremely likely that Jian Chen faced the pursuit of a Grand Prime, so he could only pray for him secretly. At this moment, a tiny spaceship only several dozen meters long tore through the pitch-black outer space as a streak of silver light, moving with great speed. Jian Chen and Kaya were grim as they piloted the spaceship, moving forwards as quickly as they could. A meter-wide piece of supreme-grade divine crystal was placed on a formation in the spaceship. The tremendous energy within the supreme-grade divine crystal was rapidly drained away by the formation, propelling the spaceship forwards. A block of supreme-grade divine crystal was equivalent to 1,000,000 standard-sized divine crystals. In the eyes of many god kings, this block of supreme-grade divine crystal was wealth that they could not afford to ignore, yet Jian Chen had used it as just a source of energy to propel the spaceship forwards. The sense of danger is becoming greater and greater. I wonder who's chasing us, Jian Chen muttered as he stared straight ahead. Although he could not see who was chasing him, he firmly believed the sudden ill omen he felt. We've already left the spatial battleship, but the person still tails us closely. We can basically be certain that he has come for us, and he's obviously not targeting me but you. Kaya looked at Jian Chen. At this moment, her senses were even sharper than his. She could vaguely sense a powerful presence rapidly approaching them from an extremely distant region of space. Moreover, she could even vaguely sense the person's precise location. It felt like her soul had fused with the cosmos such that her senses were even greater than Jian Chen's. However, she would not always possess this ability. It only happened from time to time. Moreover, she discovered that her strength did not change at all even when her senses strengthened. But I'm wearing a mask that can completely conceal my presence. Even if peak experts stand before me, they won't be able to tell who I am. How did the person behind us find me? Moreover, we're already so far from the desolate plain. Jian Chen was also in doubt. He could not understand this no matter how he thought about it. After all, he had worn the mask for many years on the desolate plain, preventing the Grand Primes from finding him at all, so why did he suddenly catch someone's eye now that he was off the desolate plain? These peak experts all have exceptional abilities and countless methods to achieve what they want. Even if you wear your mask, you won't be able to achieve true flawlessness. Perhaps, they had some methods of bypassing your disguise and finding you among the sea of people, said Kaya. At this moment, Kaya suddenly let out a sound of surprise. A strange light appeared in her eyes. What happened? Jian Chen looked at Kaya. Kaya said softly, the person who's chasing us is veering off in the wrong direction. He's following the direction that we left the spatial battleship before, and he's traveling straight. He hasn't altered his direction. You can sense his precise location. Jian Chen's eyes lit up. He already knew Kaya's senses were extremely powerful such that even the Inata Tower was not enough to block them. However, he never expected them to be so astonishing. Even he was unable to correctly sense the location of the expert behind him, yet Kaya could. This ability was just too shocking. Kaya nodded and said, he has stopped. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered. He did not say anything in response. However, a short while later, Kaya's face changed slightly. She cried out, oh no, he's moving again. He's moving towards our current location. He has located us precisely. With that, Jian Chen immediately controlled the direction of the spaceship, heading off in a different direction. An hour later, Kaya said, the person has passed by where we were before, but he did not stop. Instead, he kept flying. He's getting further and further away from us. Jian Chen was secretly astonished. Kaya's senses were so powerful that they were unimaginable. After all, even his soul that had fused with a strand of true chaotic force was unable to sense someone so far away. You're right. That person indeed has a wondrous method to bypass the mask and find us, Jian Chen growled. He was extremely stern. He has stopped again, he's heading in our current direction again. Afterwards, Kaya constantly reminded Jian Chen and paid attention to the location of the person. Jian Chen changed directions again and again. After changing directions several times, Jian Chen was finally certain about one thing. The mysterious expert chasing them was unable to sense their locations at all times. Instead, he needed to stop once in a while and use some unknown secret technique to relocate them. However, even with that being the case, the distance between them was gradually being closed. The mysterious expert was just too fast. The smaller spaceship could not match the larger spatial battleship in terms of speed, so he was obviously unable to shake the expert off. Why do I feel like this ability is similar to Heiya's? Jian Chen thought. Afterwards, with a thought, he immediately let out Heiya. Heiya was a primordial realm expert now. Obviously, he saw Jian Chen as soon as he emerged. As Jian Chen wore a mask, both his appearance and stature were different, so Heiya failed to recognize Jian Chen immediately. He was slightly surprised. Heiya, immediately use your innate ability and see if you can sense my location. Jian Chen cut right to the case. Your master. Heiya immediately determined Jian Chen's identity from that. Alright, let me try. Afterwards, Heiya closed his eyes and began using his innate ability. Jian Chen stared directly at Heya. He knew that Heya's innate ability allowed him to find anyone he had seen, no matter where they were. I wonder if Senior Mo Tianyan's mask can cover me from an innate ability like Heya's, Jian Chen wondered. Chapter 24:13, The Fruit of Ways is ripening. A while later, Heya stopped using his innate ability. He opened his eyes slowly. His gaze towards Jian Chen contained a sliver of hesitation. He said, "Master, I can only sense your position roughly, and it's sometimes wrong. My innate ability seems to be under the influence of a mysterious power, making things seem hazy. It's not as easy as finding others. Perhaps my senses have become blurry due to Master's increase in strength. My innate ability isn't actually effective against everyone. Once I encounter someone who's far more powerful than me, my innate ability will become useless." "Heya, then do you know any methods to avoid being detected by your innate ability?" Jian Chen asked. Now, he was basically certain that the mysterious expert who pursued him possessed a similar ability to Heya. Heya's senses were very blurry because of the difference in strength. The person who chased them was a peak expert, so sensing their position was obviously a piece of cake with his impressive level of cultivation. Heya furrowed his brows and pondered for a while before shaking his head to express that he did not know. A sliver of disappointment appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. He let Heya back into the divine hall. Although Heya was also a primordial realm expert, there was nothing he could do to help out given the current situation. "Jian Chen, the mysterious expert is getting closer and closer to us. Once we enter the range of the senses of his soul, he'll lock onto our position firmly. We'll be caught up in a split second," said Kaya. She was also worried. Currently, they were located beyond the range of a regular Grand Prime senses of the soul, so the Elder of Mountains and Seas was unable to find their precise location. He could only constantly use his innate ability to sense for them. However, if they were closer, and the Elder of Mountains and Seas senses of the soul had locked onto them, the Elder of Mountains and Seas would only need a single moment to stop Jian Chen and Kaya. "We can only leave this place now and enter a spatial crack," Jian Chen said coldly with determination. Afterwards, he left the tiny spaceship and appeared in outer space. Wielding the shining 9-star sword of heavenly ways, he ripped open a gash that was several meters long in space. "Let's go!" Jian Chen called out. He stowed the 9-star sword of heavenly ways away and entered the crack with Kaya. The spatial crack was filled with terrifying streams of energy and temporal vortices, making it extremely dangerous. Even primordial realm experts would face life-threatening danger in here. Jian Chen became cautious after he entered the spatial crack. Even after reaching the 14th layer of the chaotic body and possessing battle prowess that could match up to 6th heavenly layer infinite primes, he did not dare to act recklessly here. "I hope we can shake him off here," thought Jian Chen. Then he took out the Enata tower and entered it with Kaya. He moved through the spatial crack as quickly as he could by relying on the Enata tower's toughness. Probably only peak god artifacts as powerful as the Enata tower could move through somewhere as dangerous as a spatial crack fearlessly. Soon after Jian Chen and Kaya entered the spatial crack, the Elder of Mountains and Seas appeared where they were before. He closed his eyes and sensed for them for a while before becoming surprised. He murmured, "They've actually vanished. I can't sense their location anymore. It looks like they really have sensed me, which was why they constantly changed directions. How did they find out?" The Elder of Mountains and Seas gradually smiled coldly. "But that doesn't matter. They definitely won't be able to escape from me." With that, the Elder of Mountains and Seas' gaze immediately deepened. Laws interwove, and the ways changed in his eyes, becoming mysterious. His gaze seemed to see through the source of time, allowing him to peer into the past and future and witness the supreme mysteries of the world. It seemed like the many secrets of the world were clearly presented before him. The Elder of Mountains and Seas was a Grand Prime. He had comprehended the laws to an extremely deep level. Even though he was nowhere close to Grand Exalts, who had basically become the heavenly ways, he was still extremely powerful. He knew various unbelievable and exceptional techniques. Very soon, the Elder of Mountains and Seas' gaze returned to normal. As if he had discovered where Jian Chen and Kaya were when they left, he sneered and also ripped open space, entering a spatial crack. The Elder of Mountains and Seas was still able to sense Jian Chen's position within the spatial crack. However, the laws were chaotic, and the environment was horrendous, affecting his ability quite a lot. As a result, he needed a little more time to use his ability whenever he activated it. Up ahead, Jian Chen and Kaya piloted the Inata Tower to travel at full speed, constantly changing directions. This person definitely isn't as fast as the Azure Ping King. Hopefully, we can shake him off here, Jian Chen thought, but very soon, the sense of danger appeared again. This made his heart sink. Clearly, they were being chased once again. Immediately, he controlled the Inata Tower to charge towards the most dangerous places. He headed towards the temporal vortices. He could clearly remember that this was how he had managed to shake off the Azure Ping King last time. Immediately, the Inata Tower turned into a golden streak of light and passed through temporal vortex after temporal vortex. It was a good idea, but the Elder of Mountains and Seas was not the Azure Ping King in the end. When he chased them and encountered the temporal vortices, he would avoid them cleverly. He did not charge through them recklessly like the Azure Ping King. If he wanted to dodge, the temporal vortices would not be able to do anything to him with his cultivation as a Grand Prime. Even if he could not avoid them, he could simply take a detour. Even when he had to avoid the temporal vortices, it would not take up too much of his time. At most, he would just catch up to Jian Chen a little later. The Elder of Mountains and Seas was evidently more careful than the Azure Ping King. As a result, Jian Chen's idea was not particularly effective. His distance from the Elder of Mountains and Seas closed bit by bit. If this continued, being caught was only a matter of time. At the same time, a figure sat in the air within a majestic palace that stood at the very center of the Prosper Plain. The endless light from the ways surrounded and masked his figure, causing him to be blurry and hazy. However, this person seemed to give off a terrifying presence enough to make the world tremble. Just by sitting in the air, it seemed like the entire world, the entire universe, knelt below his feet. It was as if he was the supreme ruler of the world. It was as if he was the only God in the world. At this moment, he opened his eyes slowly. They were a pair of cold, emotionless eyes. He gazed ahead leisurely. Right before him, the space suddenly twisted and turned into a mirror. Within the mirror was the scene of Jian Chen and the Elder of Mountains and Seas moving through the spatial crack. Whether it be the Inata Tower that constantly changed direction or the pursuing Elder of Mountains and Seas, they were all presented clearly. The cold gaze landed on the Inata Tower. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the Inata Tower and see all the things going on in there. "The fruit of ways is ripening," he murmured. His voice seemed to possess all the sounds in the world, making it impossible to distinguish his gender. Afterwards, he closed his eyes slowly, and the scene conjured before him vanished as well. Chapter 24:14, From the Moon God Hall. Within the spatial crack, the damaged Inata Tower had already shrunk to the size of a fist. They traveled as quickly as they could in a zigzagging fashion. No matter how powerful the streams of energy were, no matter how terrifying the temporal vortices were, the Inata Tower would not try to avoid them. It flew as a faint golden streak of light. It specially traveled towards the more dangerous places. The Inata Tower was truly able to rampage about fearlessly like a bull in this chaotic space where even primordial realm experts had to be cautious. Nothing could stop it. The laws within the spatial cracks were incomplete, the five elements were reversed, and yin and yang were a mess. A sense of time did not exist. Jian Chen and Kaya had charged through many dangerous regions for who knows how long, but the sense of danger remained in Jian Chen's heart. This allowed Jian Chen to understand that he had not managed to shake off the peak expert behind him. Instead, the distance between them gradually lessened. "Let's leave this place." Jian Chen knew that he could not continue on like this. He immediately made a decision and emerged from the Inata Tower. Wielding the 9-star sword of heavenly ways, he slashed out as hard as he could under the illumination of countless stars. Immediately, the space before him twisted violently, and a crack was ripped open. Powerful pulses of energy scattered out in the surroundings with sword chi. At that moment, the unstable space became affected and became even more chaotic. Many streams of energy surged out in the surroundings, ramming into Jian Chen with force that could make even primordial realm experts pale. However, Jian Chen's body only shook a little. The terrifying streams of energy did not harm him at all. The 14th layer of the chaotic body had gifted Jian Chen with unimaginable toughness. Even though the streams of energy were very powerful and could even heavily injure some infinite primes, it was nowhere close to harming Jian Chen. Jian Chen ignored the streams of energy that battered him. He just grabbed the fist-sized Inata Tower. Without any hesitation, he entered the crack with a flash and returned to the Inata Tower. Afterwards, he took out the small spaceship again, entered it, and continued on his way. Kaya emerged from the Inata Tower and stood within the spaceship with Jian Chen, constantly paying attention to the expert behind them. "The person behind us should catch up very soon. He has a secret technique to sense my position, so we can't shake him off. All we can do now is find a teleportation formation as quickly as possible and venture to the Prosper Plane," Jian Chen said sternly before immediately taking out a star chart. He looked for the closest teleportation formation that could take him to other planes. The star chart was clearly labeled with the 49 great planes and 81 great planets of the Saints' world. Some regions in space occupied by powerful space beasts were noted as well. Even though it was incomplete, it was like a guiding lantern in the dark. It was extremely useful. The place closest to us is actually the Star Brilliance plane. It's only slightly closer than other places. Jian Chen found their current location very quickly and immediately changed directions, charging off in a straight line. The peaceful period was very short. After 3 days of peaceful travel, Kaya warned him again, and Jian Chen felt an ill omen as well. He knew the expert had locked onto their direction. Immediately, he used the same trick as before, fleeing into a spatial crack and moving through it in the Inata Tower. Jian Chen really is a slippery little worm. A while later, the Elder of Mountains and Seas appeared where Jian Chen had vanished. He stared at the space before him as he ground his teeth. He could not understand how Jian Chen was able to sense him when he concealed his presence and purposefully covered all of his traces. "It's a pity that I couldn't lock onto you with the senses of my soul, or it would have been impossible for you to run for so long with your strength," said the Elder of Mountains and Sea resentfully. Although he was a Grand Prime, and the senses of his soul were extremely powerful, Jian Chen maintained a distance that was beyond his range the entire time. Moreover, all secret techniques that could peer into matters were useless when it came to Jian Chen, forcing the Elder of Mountains and Seas to rely on his innate ability. He was unable to locate Jian Chen. However, when he arrived at Jian Chen's previous location with the use of his innate ability, Jian Chen would have changed directions already. If he continued onwards in a straight line, it would be extremely likely for him to deviate from Jian Chen, widening their distance as a result. As a result, he was forced to sense for Jian Chen's position again every once in a while. It became several times more arduous for him, a Grand Prime, to catch up to Jian Chen who was only an infinite prime in outer space. Suddenly, space was ripped open, and the Elder of Mountains and Seas followed Jian Chen, entering a spatial crack again. Their chase continued in the horrible environment of the spatial crack. Jian Chen sensed it soon after the Elder of Mountains and Seas entered the spatial crack. He was unable to locate the Elder of Mountains and Seas, but the danger he sensed grew in intensity. This time, he was clearly much more composed. He piloted the Enata tower to continue on his way calmly. At this moment, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He discovered a corpse slowly drifting over up ahead. Even though the corpse was completely lifeless, it still gave off a dense pressure. Under Jian Chen's control, the Enata tower stopped before the corpse. Jian Chen pulled the corpse into the Enata tower before continuing on his way. The corpse that Jian Chen had pulled and laid on the ground stiffly. It was the body of a middle-aged man with 4 eyes. Clearly, he belonged to a separate race. There was a finger-sized hole between his eyes, piercing through his entire head. His soul had already been destroyed. 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime. Jian Chen was slightly shocked when he studied the corpse. He immediately determined the man's cultivation. He was actually on the same level as Yi Jianping from the spatial battleship. What shocked him even more was that the man was seemingly killed with a single attack. Even a 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime had been killed with a single attack. Just how powerful was his killer? Were they a chaotic prime? A grand prime? However, Jian Chen was not concerned with this issue. He looked at one of the corpse's fingers, specifically the space ring on his index finger. Although the primordial realm expert had died, his space ring was not taken away. The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered, and he slowly removed the space ring. He checked its contents with the senses of his soul. Immediately, a dazzling array of items were presented before Jian Chen. The dead man was extremely wealthy. He had countless god-tier pills and heavenly resources that were stacked up in a huge pile. He even had over 3,000 5-colored divine crystals. At this moment, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. With a flip of his hand, he removed a hand-sized medallion from the space ring. The medallion was white and lustrous. It shone with a faint glow like the moon. A large moon was imprinted on it. What caught Jian Chen's attention were the 3 words carved fancily onto one side of the medallion, Moon God Hall. The Moon God Hall. Jian Chen murmured. Fairy Hao Yu in snow-white clothes suddenly appeared in his head. Fairy Hao Yu had left the cloud plain many years ago. She ventured to the ice pole plain, and there had been no news of her ever since. Who knows how she was doing now? For a moment, Jian Chen fell into a daze as he stared at the 3 large words on the medallion. He played around with it and unintentionally saw its back. The back of the medallion also had 3 large words, Nan Patian. Nan Patian. Jian Chen's heart suddenly shuddered when he saw this. His eyes shone brightly. He had heard of this name many times from Fairy Hao Yu. He was the greatest enemy of Fairy Hao Yu. He was even the person responsible for Fairy Hao Yu's sole arrival on the Tianyuan continent. Now that Nan Potion's name had actually appeared behind the medallion, Jian Chen completely understood what it represented. Nan Patian was now in charge of the Moon God Hall. Does this person come from the Moon God Hall? Who killed him? Was it Fairy Hao Yu? Or was it someone else? Jian Chen looked at the corpse once again, and his feelings immediately became mixed. Back on the cloud plain, Fairy Hao Yu had become especially powerful after she recovered. She had killed her way into the Empyrean demon cult alone. Even when the 3 vice leaders worked together, they could do nothing to her. In the end, she punched a hole through the headquarters of the Empyrean demon cult and basically swaggered out. Now, after so many years, Fairy Hao Yu had probably become a chaotic prime. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall was a peak chaotic prime already many years ago. I wonder if he has broken through to Grand Prime now. However, even if Nan Patian hasn't broken through, it's impossible for Fairy Hao Yu to be his opponent. I hope Fairy Hao Yu is safe, Jian Chen thought as he worried for her safety. However, he also understood that he himself was in trouble right now and would not necessarily survive. He was currently being chased by a mysterious expert, so he was in no shape to help Fairy Hao Yu. I can only hurry to the Prosper Plain as quickly as I can. As long as I personally return the Enitat Tower to the heavenly palace of Bishan, the merit will be very great. Not only will I be able to exchange for a large amount of cultivation resources for my sister, but I'll also be able to spare the effort to help out Fairy Hao Yu. With the strength of the heavenly palace of Bishan, settling the moon god Hall's problems is only a matter of a single sentence. Jian Chen became eager. He wanted to reach the heavenly palace of Bishan immediately. At this moment, Jian Chen flipped his hand, and a single talisman appeared in his hands. Is this a cosmic movement talisman? Jian Chen's eyes lit up as he stared at it. He had obtained several cosmic movement talismans from the Grand Prime Space Ring back in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Those cosmic movement talismans were of extremely high quality. They could transport people incredibly far away. Once they were activated, it was even possible to escape from regular Grand Primes. Now that he had found a talisman that was basically the same as them, Jian Chen immediately rejoiced. The mysterious expert pursuing them could find his position in the sea of stars with precision through a wondrous secret technique. Jian Chen could not shake him off no matter how he tried. The appearance of the cosmic movement talisman was basically giving him exactly what he needed when he needed it the most. No, this cosmic movement talisman is of a very low quality. It can't be compared to the ones I obtained from the Neptunian Divine Palace. However, very soon, Jian Chen sighed in disappointment. The quality of the cosmic movement talisman was insufficient. Let alone the fact that it could not transport them very far away, even when he activated it, it was extremely likely for foreign powers to interfere with it, causing it to fail. As a result, he might have been able to escape from some chaotic primes with the cosmic movement talisman, but it would be far too difficult to escape from grand primes using it. Jian Chen, he's catching up, Kaya warned at this moment. With that, Jian Chen stowed the cosmic movement talisman away in ripped open space, returning to the saint's world. Very soon, this flight and pursuit had already lasted for half a year. In order to avoid the Elder of Mountains and Seas, Jian Chen alternated between the Saint's World and the spatial cracks, maintaining a certain distance from the Elder of Mountains and Seas the entire time, avoiding the range of the senses of his soul. During this time, the Elder of Mountains and Seas had used hastening secret techniques several times to lock onto Jian Chen with the senses of his soul. Unfortunately, Jian Chen had Kaya. Kaya's senses were unimaginably powerful, locating the Elder of Mountains and Seas precisely. She would always be able to remind Jian Chen before his arrival, which caused the Elder of Mountains and Seas much anger. Jian Chen, even if you flee to the ends of the world, you won't be able to escape from me, the Elder of Mountains and Seas roared out furiously from behind. He had gradually become impatient after half a year of pursuit. He became agitated. The longer he took, the worse it would be for him. Once other experts received the news, all of this would end up as wasted effort. There are 2 more days until we arrive on the Star Brilliance Plain. A small spaceship tore through the dark outer space, moving with great speeds. Jian Chen looked at his star chart inside the spaceship and finally became relieved. Once they reached the Star Brilliance Plain, they could just leave through a teleportation formation. By then, even Grand Primes would not be able to catch up to him. Teleportation formations across planes were faster than almost all Grand Primes. Jian Chen felt extremely fortunate along the way, as the location when he returned to the Saint's World through a spatial crack would be unstable. Shifts were commonplace. They could even be taken to forbidden regions in space. These forbidden regions of space were places where space beast sovereigns resided. Even many grand primes would not have the courage to venture into such places. However, he had not experienced too great of a shift every time he returned to the Saint's world from the spatial cracks. He remained in the surroundings of the Star Brilliance plane, and the shifts even allowed his smaller spaceship to reach the Star Brilliance plane a few years earlier than the larger spatial battleship from the Jade Fluid plane. "The Star Brilliance plane is right ahead," said Jian Chen. He felt a sense of relief. He could clearly see the tremendous plain of land that belonged to the Star Brilliance plane. Due to being too far away, the Star Brilliance plane was only the size of a fingernail to Jian Chen right now. It was like a piece of earth, floating quietly in outer space without moving at all. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance could cross this distance in a single moment, but Jian Chen needed 2 days. Looking at the Star Brilliance plane up ahead, Kaya, who stood beside Jian Chen, did not seem to lighten up at all. Instead, it seemed like something was weighing on her mind. This was because she experienced an intense sense of threat during this entire half a year. The threat was so great that she felt like she was facing the heavens, where there was nowhere she could hide. The only thing she could do was wait for its arrival and accept it. At this moment, Kaya suddenly looked at Jian Chen. The light in her eyes flickered as she hesitated. It was as if there was something she wanted to say to Jian Chen, but she struggled to open her mouth about it. "Kaya, what's the matter?" Jian Chen was an infinite prime now. He was so powerful that even though he placed all his attention on the Star Brilliance plane, he still sensed that there was something off with Kaya. Kaya turned away and looked at the Star Brilliance plane as if she was avoiding Jian Chen's gaze. After a while of silence, she finally worked up the courage and said softly, "Jian Chen, there's something I've actually always wanted to ask you, but I never dared to. Originally, I planned on burying it in my heart without anyone knowing, but I have an intense feeling that if I don't say it now, I might not get a chance to in the future." Jian Chen was surprised when he heard that. He glanced at Kaya deeply and remained silent. He was not dim. He could clearly tell what Kaya was trying to say from her tone and expression. Kaya had clearly fallen in love with him. This troubled Jian Chen. He actually had no idea how to handle this situation. Kaya was born in the sea realm in the lower world. Jian Chen could still clearly remember the first time he met Kaya. Back then, he and newbies sought refuge in the sea realm to avoid the many experts of the beast god continent. Back then, Kaya was the daughter of a patriarch of a tribe within the sea realm. They had been brought together through some crystal coins, which led to everything else that followed. Afterwards, he obtained the Octaterra Emperor's cultivation method and passed it to Kaya, but unexpectedly, it caused the destruction of Kaya's tribe. The entire tribe was exterminated, forcing Kaya to flee into a danger zone of the sea realm to survive. Many years later, when Kaya emerged from the zone of danger, not only did her strength increase drastically, but she had even tamed a true divine beast, the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. As a result, she stood at the apex of the Tianyuan continent. Afterwards, she was heavily injured in the war against the world of Forsaken Saints and was unconscious ever since. In order to heal Kaya, he brought her to the Saints' world and only managed to save her after strenuous effort. Jian Chen admitted that he had gone to great lengths to awaken Kaya, even risking his life to venture into the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair just to look for heavenly resources that could heal the soul. Although he had done a lot for Kaya, he only treated her as his best friend. He felt no attraction towards her. He had never expected Kaya to actually fall in love with him. "Kaya, you've known me for quite some time. You should understand me," said Jian Chen slowly after a while of thought. His voice contained deep powerlessness. Some matters could not be prevented, such as Kaya falling in love with him. It was impossible for him to prevent that. As a matter of fact, it would have been better if he did not know this. He had always treated Kaya as his best friend. He did that since the Tianyuan continent. Especially when the two of them had fled the cloud plain due to Huai En's pursuit, the hardships and difficulties they experienced along the way had deepened their friendship. Of course, it was only friendship. It was exactly because of this friendship that he was unwilling to harm Kaya at all. Hence, he felt powerless about Kaya's love towards him. Kaya was in low spirits. She did not look at Jian Chen and looked at the pitch-black space gloomily instead. Jian Chen, do you feel that I'm not pretty enough? Kaya asked gently. She revealed her true feelings. She had said something she had kept buried in her heart for many years, causing all the feelings she had repressed during those years to suddenly erupt like a volcano. It was extremely intense. At that moment, she seemed to have become fearless. She felt no shyness about being a woman. She had gained courage. Jian Chen sighed gently. The suddenness of the matter had caught him off guard. Unprepared, he was immediately left at a loss about how to handle this situation. Even though Kaya's appearance was not alluring, she was still rather pretty. She was not as ugly as she believed herself to be. Of course, Jian Chen had already seen through materialistic concepts at his level of cultivation. Appearances were nothing to him. No matter how beautiful someone was on the outside, that was only surface level. Once the surface was removed, they were just a combination of flesh and bone. As a result, Jian Chen had already broken free from the outlook of mortals with his current level of cultivation. He found no difference in beauty and ugliness. However, Kaya was a god king, yet she still cared about her appearance. This made Jian Chen realize just how deeply in love she was with him. The love had obscured her. It had disorientated her, preventing her from seeing the essence of things. Jian Chen, when I was heavily injured on the Tianyuan continent and entered a long period of slumber, you might have thought that I had lost contact with the outside world completely and had no idea what was happening around me. Kaya turned around and looked at Jian Chen. Her face was mixed, and she continued, but in reality, it was the exact opposite. I knew exactly what you did during the time I was unconscious. The Elder of Mountains and Seas appeared there like a ghost. As soon as he appeared, he closed his eyes and used his innate ability. When he opened his eyes, coldness flashed through them. I've found you. You seem to be on the star brilliance plane. Humph, don't you even think about escaping through the teleportation formations on the star brilliance plane. The Elder of Mountains and Seas became frantic. He did not dare to waste any time, so with a single movement, he vanished. He hurried off towards the star brilliance plane as quickly as he could. I've chased you for so long, so I can't let you enter the teleportation formation no matter what, the Elder of Mountains and Seas snarled inside. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.